When Pan Jian died, Li Jianting had just turned into danger, and the eunuchs serving in the palace were too late to cry and were taken to prison. Chu Jun was poisoned. The wine and vinegar noodles were immediately sealed up and all eunuchs were sent to jail. Based on the days of Emperor Tianchen, Fu Man came to take charge of the case and tortured them severely. When Pan Jian died, Li Jianting had just turned into danger, and the eunuchs serving in the palace were too late to cry and were taken to prison. Chu Jun was poisoned. The wine and vinegar noodles were immediately sealed up and all eunuchs were sent to jail. Based on the days of Emperor Tianchen, Fu Man came to take charge of the case and tortured them severely. Ancestral ancestor. Xiao Nei couldn't stand the beating, crying on the stool. Ancestral ancestor. Fu Man was wearing a python pattern, and wearing a smoke pier cap, looking at the paintings on the wall with his negative hand. The eunuchs with sticks were all left by the original Dongchang. They were good at this and beat their inner concubines to faint. The ancestors spared their lives. This little inner sobbed silently. Fu Man turned around and said, "What happened to Chu Jun while you were serving? If you want to survive, you must explain to our family." These in-laws who waited were all entered into the palace by Emperor Tianchen. Up to now, even Chu Jun did not know what poison was, and could not explain anything at all. Fu Man was patient, and said, "You can think about what the governor of the day ate and wore." The people in the wine and vinegar scene were so mixed, and maybe they mixed in a few things with a heartfelt feeling. "Why can't you think of it now?" The inner concubine heard something, but he didn't dare to guess arrogantly, and still couldn't say it. Fu Man hated the iron and shook his sleeve like steel, letting the old asterisk with a stick continue to fight. The inner concubine was soaked with blood in his mouth. He yanked his stool, and wept sobbing, "Don't hit. Ancestral, ancestor, I say." Fu Man ignored it. The impotent swallowed the blood and said, "The wine and vinegar face and the Siyuan bureau are a little new face." Fu Man turned to his side and coaxed softly, "You all come and go." Infighting shook his head hard and didn't dare to answer this sentence. He lifted his eyes, tempted Fu Man's face, and whispered, "I don't know." "You don't know? How do you know which round they are in?" Fu Man guided him intentionally. "Someone has to tell you before you know." The insider said, "Look at the temple, watch the door." "Well," Fu Man stooped, "can the janitor be next to Chu Jun? Whoever serves Chu Jun usually knows him best." The inner concubine did not dare to pant, said along the way, "I am always served by Feng Quan." Fu Man gently patted him, and said, "This will end." The case fell into the hands of Fu Man, and it was certainly impossible to detect the real murder. He was instructed by Han Kuan to block people in the Li Jianting hall. Poison has nothing to do with wine and vinegar. The problem lies in the chopsticks that Li Jianting ate on the day. When Chu Jun fell down, the hall was in a mess, and Fu Man had already stolen the beams and changed the pillars, and packed everything up. When Fu Man was out of the hall, before going out of the yard, he saw several men who raised the sedan waiting for him under the locust tree outside. As soon as the officials under the supervision of the Ministry of Criminal Affairs left, Fu Man was vigilant, rolled up his robe, and stepped out with a smile. "Which gentleman is looking for me? Just let me know, so why do I have to ask for it? Coincidentally, you have to work on a case, you can't get away." The curtain opened, and Han Yang sneered a few times. "A few days later, the dog thing picked up Joe with your grandfather. Why? I can't move you anymore. It's this dog day again." Fu Man bowed down obediently and said, "Slave is the old thing in the cabinet, and the dogskin plaster is sticking to me for investigation. I'm annoyed. I didn't want to be you." "See what you said, the slave saw you. What is it?" "Oh, Ruyan Tu Lin. He pretends to be stupid and knows that Han Yang will eat this set." Han Yang looked a little stubborn, didn't tangle with him anymore, fell off the curtain, and said, "Follow me." Fu Man went all the way and scolded all the way, all in his heart. When I arrived at the place, it was Han Yang's private house, and I knew that Teetering was going to ask him about the case of Chu Jun. When he entered the door, before he could flatter, he saw all the knives inside brightly, and immediately forgot what he was going to say, and threw himself on his knees. "Look at you." Han Yun poured tea into the pot without making Fu full, and said, "Want to learn Pan Rugi?" You deserve it too. It's not worth it, it's definitely not worth it. Fu Man held on to the ground and reluctantly smiled. A slave is a slut. How can you compare with the ancestor? Don't dare to have that kind of heart. Han Zheng put the teapot back and said, I let you kill Li Jianting, what poison did you get? With cold sweat permeating on Fu Man's back, he couldn't hesitate. He said as he thought it 1,000 times in his heart, slave follows the commander's instructions, and the next thing is slam chase. That's weird, Han Yang teased. This medicine can poison a few strong men, but not a woman. Fu Man felt that the back of his neck was cold. It was a real knife, which had already reached him. The muscles on his face twitched, and suddenly raised his hand to slap himself, changing his face and crying, What are you talking about, the slave's heart? How dare slavery dare to murder his own father with an outsider? Besides Shui Yanqing and Kong Yang, a few of them didn't look at the people, and they used slaves as animals. What slaves really did was the chase, and the chopsticks were still there. Fu Man cried halfway, wiping tears. Slaves are wandering, it's absolutely terrible, but it's following, and Chu Jun just vomited a few times. This is not a ghost. Han Yang had a blue complexion. Li Jianting's life and death depended on the situation. He even took out the 8 major camps, betting that Chu Jun would die, but Li Jianting was okay. The Dancheng case is not settled yet, which means to continue the investigation. Without Pan, the next turn should be Helianhu Fei's turn, and everyone in Chiching is in danger. Can you tell someone about poisoning? Fu Man quickly said, How dare you be a slave? You'd better not dare. Han Yang threw away the teacup in his hand. This is what you do, and you have to pack it now. Those in her temple can't stay, and take advantage of this opportunity to kill all. If Li Jianting is chasing, she will die. Either someone changed the poison or Fu Man didn't chase after all. In any case, the people who waited in her dormitory could not stay anymore, and there might be other people mixed in it. It's treacherous, and the rootless, sloppy Leatherman most often sees the wind to the helm, and Fu Man is not a good thing. Right now the family is damaged, and it is hard to guarantee that he will not be able to be full of other minds. It would be a woe to keep him. Han Yun is suspicious by nature, and now he is like a bird who is frightened by a bow. He got up and looked at Fu Man, approached a few steps, and was already killing. Seeing that he was about to be in a different place immediately, Fu Man shouted anxiously, Yuan Fu, order me to investigate the case, there is still a turn for the better. The commander does not need to worry, I will clean up. All the officials of the penal department supervised it's an acquaintance, and if something goes wrong, I raise my head to see the commander. Han Yang couldn't really kill him at this moment. When he saw his face turned pale and unpromising, he said, This thing is broken again. Even if I want to keep you, the Queen Mother won't keep you. I want to be an ancestor. You must have that ability. Fu Manlian claims to be in shock. Niandu was rainy and the battlefield was sunny. The 3 battalion owners will rotate, and today is Xiao Qie to the 1st Battalion. Lu Guangbai sent his army account to welcome him. Xiao Qie took off his helmet and greeted him. Lu Guangbai jumped up to catch Xiao Qie's helmet, saw the dent above, and said, Hassan played the trebuchet better than us. Xiao Qie handed the reins to Chenyang, stood in place and dismantled his arms, and said, Yesterday the watchtower of the 2nd Battalion was smashed. You quickly send a message to the master and let the military craftsmen go to the 2nd Battalion. Neither Ming sent a new batch of soldiers to go here. If you can't wait, I will let the soldiers in Bianboring make up. Lu Guangbai returned the helmet to Chenyang. The walls of the 3 battalions were repaired and collapsed. Now, Master Chenqiu will leave you with no staff. Xiao Qie tanned his skin during this time, and watched hovering over the camp, saying, The number of Biancha cavalry is increasing. After the Duanzhou Scorpion was under siege, Hassan began to storm. Most obviously in March, Xiao Qie noticed that Hassan was frantically mobilizing manpower in the east, and the number of edge cavalry increased rapidly. Last year, they could only attack the main force, relying on the remaining soldiers to make a roundabout sneak attack. A battalion. Amor put Hassan to the north, but he didn't go south, Lu Guangbai said, because he wants to expand the territory in the deep desert, so that the remaining 6 will be returned as soon as possible. Hassan can now have a cavalry attacking at the same time. I am afraid that is a more new boost. Xiao Qie wiped the dust on his cheeks thoughtfully. Lu Guangbai continued, but Hassan has been playing very unstable recently. Ochi was killed by Xiao Qie. Hassan thought that Xiao Qie would take the new iron to ride out of the camp wall when he returned to the battlefield, but Xiao Qie did not do so. Without it, Hassan couldn't face Xiao Qie's new iron riders face to face. They seemed to have changed positions. The unknown is an unpreventable danger, and Xiao Qie is taking Hassan's initiative. Hassan fought in the north and south battlefields all in the hands of the winners, Xiao Qie said. Part of his victory came from his familiarity with the generals. The battle that Qi Zhuyin fought in the battlefield is proof that Xiao Jiming noticed this and therefore disrupted the order of the battlefield. When Hassan met Li Bariki again, he understood what Xiao Jiming was doing. Xiao Jiming is the commander-in-chief of the type that Hassan doesn't like most, because he can't keep up with the pace and won't worry. He seems to be able to always stay calm. This is both Xiao Jiming's character and Xiao Jiming's style. He knew he couldn't beat Hassan, so he didn't want to share the win or lose with Hassan on the battlefield atmosphere. All he had done in these months was to ease the rhythm of leaving north. Tietchi is recovering, and even if he can't win, he won't be dragged away by Hassan as before. Hassan is anxious when he stands next door, Xiao Qie said in a deep voice. After all, he only wants to win. Xiao Jiming wants to leave the opportunity to Xiao Qie. Lu Guangbai looked at Xiao Qie and said, Amor has invested his life in his life. His victory is related to the dignity of the 12. If he cannot win this battle, he cannot be a 12. Minister of the future. Xiao Qie didn't care why Hassan won, he just wanted Hassan's head. Lu Guangbai seemed to understand this and did not continue. Instead, he said, Hassan's anxiety also comes from the south. The boss hit the mouse department, and they also face pressure from both sides. But is Hassan really anxious because of the north-south battlefield? Xiao Qie thinks that Hassan's onslaught during this time has another meaning. Hassan may want to use this blinding method to conceal his goal. Compared with consumption from the north and Chidong, Zhongbua is the best place to play. Hassan is very good at disguising. Xiao Qie is like a wolf lingering in the dark, staring at every action of Hassan. His understanding of Hassan far exceeds that of Hassan. The author has something to say. He is late again. If I were Hussein, Xiao Qie crouched down, drawing a sketch on the sand, I will fight Duanzhou. If I were Hussein, Xiao Qie crouched down, drawing a sketch on the sand, I will fight Duanzhou. Shun Zechuan cut off the heavy line in a moor in Duanzhou, and Hassan's rations could only be distributed to the 6 desert units. Earlier this year, Amor allowed Hassan to marry Doraemon precisely because he needed the Hulu to supply food to the front line. The Biancha cavalry has no chance of robbery since June last year. This is the root cause of Hassan's anxiety. Then you have to think clearly. Lu Guangbai also squatted down, picked up a stone and pressed it on Xiao Qie's Duanzhou. As long as you attack Duanzhou, Shun Zechuan will call the stand-in tiger behind him. You start a battle in Duanzhou, and then Shun Zechuan issues a transfer order to Bianjuan and Shosan Battalion, and the reinforcements on both sides can trap you in Duanzhou and let you never come back. I can run, Xiao Qie's forefinger circled along the stone. I have the fastest cavalry. The purpose is not to retake Duanzhou, but to rob Duanzhou granary. On the return trip, I can also surprise the newly built Luoshan. On the racetrack, the reinforcements on both sides cannot catch up. You forgot the commander, said Lu Guangbai. You leave the battlefield, the commander will follow the current and go around Gudal to kick your ass. Just what I want. Xiao Qie flipped the stone to Bian County. The commander detoured to Jedale, and I gave the green mouse part to the bear part, so that the bear part could intercept the coach's retreat, trapped her in Gudal and smashed. Lu Guangbai blocked the stone with his back, saying, since the commander dares to go alone, there must be a backup. She can transfer the Kang County Defense Force to Bian County, and when the Bear Department sends troops to stop the road, let the Kang County Defense Force fight back. Moreover, the Bear Ministry has not yet surrendered to Amor. You may let them come out as shields to block guns. They may not be willing. They must be willing, Xiao Qie said. There was a bear department that was unwilling to surrender to a Moor because a mouse department was in front of them as a wall to stop Chidong's garrison. But now the mouse department was killed by the commander. There are bears who can't resist the next round of offense of the commander. They can only get a Moor's reinforcements if they surrender. Lu Guangbai hesitated for a moment and put the stone back into Duanzhou again, saying, "Okay, if the commander doesn't move, I will stay in Luoshan in advance. I will destroy the road from Luoshan to Duanzhou during the raid," said Xiao Qie. "Without the road, you have to circle around Luoshan in situ and watch my cavalry leave." Lu Guangbai pushed the stone and said, "You have to cross the river on your return trip. I am ambushed at the Chashi River. Even if you spent my troops on the Chashi River," Xiao Qie looked up. "My purpose has been achieved." Lu Guangbai touched the bridge of his nose with his fingertips, and smiled bitterly. "It's cruel. The Chashi River is the Gobi and the wilderness. Lu Guangbai's ambush depends on the terrain. He has no advantage in the Chashi River. Chariot formation can resist the cavalry's attack, but cannot pursue the cavalry. Lu Guangbai cannot catch up with the cavalry. If Xiao Qie's speculation is correct, then Hassan can not only get supplies in this raid, but also reblock Qi Zhuyin in the south, reducing his pressure in the north." Xiao Qie stretched out 5 fingers, covered the map, and said, "Hassan has eyes in Batu, and he can see the big picture." In the twilight, smoke was rising from the camp. Lu Guangbai simply sat on the ground, he held the stone in his palm, and saw the orange-red stain on the camp wall. In the last glory, he said to Xiao Qie, "You can't walk away." Hassan stormed the battlefield, and they were all restrained here, too busy to separate. The onslaught means that he is starting to run out of food. Xiao Qie stared at the map between his fingers. "If he can't hold us back, he will lose some elite in Duanzhou." Hassan suppresses the main forces of the 3 camps in the battlefield. Only when the 3 main forces are exhausted, can he let his elite attack on Duanzhou. When the time is far from the north, he is tired of fighting, and the threat of reinforcements to Hassan is reduced. That is his best time. Lu Guangbai threw the stone to Xiao Qie and said, "This is the time we can control. As long as you see Hassan's purpose, this raid is no longer terrible. Hassan can disguise, as can riding from the North Rail. The war of attrition is not good for both sides, but compared to Xiao Qie, he has the supply of military food for Shen Zichuan. Until the battle, the only person who really threatened a Moor was Shen Zichuan. His supply line is like a spiderweb, making the 3 realms of the east solid. Drag time to the end of June, Xiao Qie caught the stone, and placed it on the scribbled map. I took the 2nd Battalion to the Edge County. Yuan Master can show fatigue under the onslaught of Hassan, as long as his offensive weakened, which was to strike the precursor of Duanzhou, and I was waiting for him in Duanzhou. The 3 months are just right. When Hassan dispatched a raid, it was a season with plenty of Tsungjie, and he would not miss this time. The 2 said that at this time, it was dark. Xiao Qie stood up, whistled into the sky, fluttered and turned, and after a while, fell back to his shoulder. Lu Guangbai patted his robe and walked side by side with Xiao Qie into the army account. Chen Yang waited at the door and lifted the curtains for them, whispering when Xiao Qie entered the account, "The letters of the master, the prince, and the bones have arrived." Xiao Qie took the letter and stood looking at the door. Lu Guangbai drank half a bowl of milk tea. He didn't hear Xiao Qie's movement. He turned around and saw Xiao Qie's gloomy look. A few days later, Fu Man heard that he arrived at the cabinet office. Before changing into the door, he changed his wet cover and stepped in with a robe to salute Kong Yang. Kong Yang sat next to the window and only said M to signal Fu Man to get up first. Fu straightened up, restrained, and stood at the end. He turned his eyes around the black boots on the side and recognized the courtiers. Just after the spring plowing ended, Huaizhou bought a batch of grain from Baima Prefecture, and Shan converted him at the price of Jushi rice. Liang Yangshan finished his speech. Kong Yang lost a few white hairs during this time, hiding in the black hat, and could not see clearly. He said, "Now that Chidong is fighting, it is natural that the army should take Chidong first, and the military expenses of the 8 major battalions can be reduced as appropriate." Fu Manchun said, "When the cabinet wants to check the 8 city account if he wishes, he must first cut off Han's potential. That's what the Ministry of Defense means, said Chen Jin of the Ministry of Military Affairs, who slammed the cigarette twice. But Han Yun refused. He wanted a ticket from the cabinet. He wants to approve the red, said Center Yu. The Dancheng case has not yet been concluded, and the Queen Mother cannot approve to avoid suspicion. Since the cabinet has given you meaning, everyone agrees with him, so he depends on it. The Queen is now unable to protect herself. Where can I still have the previous bonus, right? Hua Cheng Huasha are at ease. What poison in Chu Jun? Everyone here knows it. Kong Xian threw Chu Jun's case to Fu Man and asked the inner court to investigate, which was to save the last face of the Queen. Han Zheng also occupied the position of commander of Jin Yiwei. This is to follow the old path of Hua Xiqian, relying on the 8 major camps to fight against the cabinet. Blessings are all around Fu Man. Waiting is now. The family of this ship cannot wait. He can jump to the cabinet of the ship. He showed his face in front of Hai Liangyi and spent the longest time in the cabinet run office. The ancestor of Xiao Guari was not called casually, but he did have this weight. He held the case of Chu Jun so tightly, one was to pick himself up, and the other was to make Fengquan a scapegoat. Emperor Tianchen favored Ruru. When he promoted Fengquan, he provoked the cabinet. At that time, all the procuratorates were impeached. Later, Emperor Tianchen died in Mu Ayu's hands. Fengquan borrowed Xue Xiujua's light to survive. Fu Man didn't dare to provoke Xue Xiujua, but he had already seen clearly that Chu Jun was the master of Daiju coming to Japan. He had to kick Fengquan in order to get a place beside Chu Jun. He would count on Chu Jun for his prosperity and wealth for decades to come. Yet, Han and Kong Yang Fu Man both looked down on. Think about Pan Rugi. Pan Rugi was able to gather with Pan Dang and sit on an equal footing with Hua Xiqian, relying on the trust of Emperor Guangcheng. Eunuchs are not easy to do, and they are called as dogs, but once they find the right master, that is the dog over 10,000 people. Everyone who sees it must call the ancestor respectfully. Fu Man was thinking. Suddenly he noticed that Kong Yang was looking at himself. He immediately stepped forward and bowed, followed by 2 looks in front of Han Yang. Fu Man said respectfully, Yuan Fu's slaves checked, and the slaves have already found out. The seasonal vegetables used by Chu Jun that day were all imported by our company. Isn't that just for the palace? Kong Yang said, who is the chief eunuch? It's called Yinzhu, Fu Man continued. The slaves carefully asked the people who were serving in the Chujun Hall, and they couldn't stand close to Siyuan Bureau. The palace was very strict, and they didn't even meet. The Siyuan Bureau has problems with the vegetables. It can also be delivered to Chu Jun's table through such multiple layers. If the person in charge is not capable, it will not be possible. They all figured out that it would not be possible without half a year of effort. Fu Man replied in a continuous voice, saying, Slave really found the individual. Kong Yang looked at Center Yu and asked, who? Blessing looked, hesitated, and for a moment, he said, it is Fengquan. Fengquan used to be a palm print ***** in Sai Lijian, and the Siyuan Bureau was also under the jurisdiction of the palm print eunuch, which was also related to Shang Shangjian. He is not only Chu Jun's but also the one to be protected by his mother-in-law. Compared with the blessing of flattery, Fengquan can't clear the suspicion. Kong Yang frowned, and said, isn't this man dead? Yeah, Fu Man said softly. But he stayed with Chu Jun for more than half a year, and looked different. When Mingletang was waiting, he didn't recognize him. Kong Yang didn't say a word immediately. They were silent, and they heard Xue Xiujua arrive at the door. Liang Yishan knows how to save lives, and the internal affairs of Chu Jun are not something he can blend in with. He took the opportunity to stand up and backed out when Xue Xiujua came in. Xue Xiujua's black silk hat was slightly tied, covered with some rainwater. When he came in, he saw Fu Man waiting by the side, and he didn't ask, saluting Kong Yang. Kong Zheng didn't mention the matter of Fengquan, let Xue Xiujua sit down and talk. ***** the Chashi thawed, and the warm spring in Duanzhou suddenly disappeared, with drizzle for several days. The peach blossoms in the courtyard ran out, and the rain made the ground red. Shun Zichuan wanted to discuss matters with the gentleman in the hall. For a few hours, Fei Sheng added a charcoal basin to the cold in the hall. Yang Heru didn't show up for so long, and Hezhou's business was messed up. Businessmen were noisy, and they were afraid that the business appointments at the beginning of the year would be yellow. They went to Chazhou and wanted to talk to the government. Yu Xiao sat again Kong Ling's lower head, next to the charcoal basin, continued, "The port side has to deal with the local yamen, and we must send a person as soon as possible." "Yarrow Wenyu looked okay today," he said, "just after the spring plowing, all the gates can be deployed. Chazhou also has a Wang Xian who is familiar with taxes, and there is no reason for the governors to meet them in person. How to do business in the past, how to do it now." Shun Zichuan held Tang Po in his palm. "A Wang Xian is enough." Wang Xian used to be the head of the Ministry of Household Affairs. He dealt with various ministries. Even Xiao Qiye touched the wall in front of him, so it was most appropriate for him to talk with businessmen. The Liuju prefecture is where the Yang family is in the relationship. Ask them if they can find Yang Heru. If they can't find it, Shun Zichuan turned over the case and said, "Hurry up and push someone who can do it." Qi Zhuyin has returned to Chidong. Yang's family has to send the rest of the military rations in April. Yang Heru must not find it. It has been overturned at home. Shun Zichuan reminded them. The food was delivered. Today's things are almost the same. Shun Zichuan said that Xiao Tianya had not returned from the schoolyard, and said, "Yu Jing said the details of the gates in various states. The situation is very mixed and you can't generalize it. You go back and make up a booklet. In the case of the might of God, just be concise. Master is in my yard, and Yuan Zhua will eat with me today." The gentlemen stood up one after another and retired to Fu Juanxing. Ji Gang watched Ding Dao punching under the eaves, and when the gentleman came out, he sent Ding Dao to order the kitchen to prepare vegetables. Keeping Fei Sheng's instructions in mind, Ding Dao left Li Xiong in the yard to protect the monarch. He himself jumped down the steps in a few steps to spread the message. Yarrow Wenyu was originally pushed by Xiao Tianya, but in recent days it has been Ji Gang. When Xiao Tianya returned, the sky was already dark. Ding Dao stood by the side of Li Xiongman, holding his arm, and said indifferently to Xiao Tianya, "You can't enter without the prince." Xiao Tianya struck Ding Dao's head and lifted the curtain to look at the house. "Mister is gone." Ding Dao broke free. "I used Grandpa to ask my grandfather to push him back." "Don't you say it earlier?" Xiao Tianya asked. "How about the prince?" "The governor should rest," Ding Dao said. "It's in the bathroom now. The windows inside the hall don't call people to close. The cold wind is strong in the evening." Xiao Tianya scared Ding Dao. Ding Dao really forgot about this stubble. He said, "I remember, I'm about to close." Ding Dao said, turning into the hall and closing the windows one by one. When he stepped back, he held a hard object in his head. He quickly held his head, thinking that Fei Sheng was back. He was preparing to speak, and shrank. He snored around his neck. Xiao Qiye put down his wolf knife blocking Ding Dao, and slightly tilted his head to find Shun Zichuan. His face was wet, rain and sweat, his heavy armor was not removed, and his boots were dirty. This is when the horse came off the battlefield and rushed back. The author has something to say. It's late. When Shun Zichuan returned to the house, the rain was still falling. He was wearing a robe and no wooden clogs. He heard a few thunderous thunders in the small corridor leading to the sleeping room. The moist wind rushed to his cheek through the newly cut window screen. The sound dispelled Shun Zichuan's sedentary breath. When Shun Zichuan returned to the house, the rain was still falling. He was wearing a robe and no wooden clogs. He heard a few thunderous thunders in the small corridor leading to the sleeping room. The moist wind rushed to his cheek through the newly cut window screen. The sound dispelled Shun Zichuan's sedentary breath. A candlestick stands beside the corridor, which is brighter than the dormitory. Shun Zichuan seems to want to ventilate and stands there without moving. The shadow passed through the bamboo curtain and was exposed on the rafters in the dormitory. The orange candle light haloed his silhouette, and the neck of the slight side was a bit red. April is the season for growing seedlings. If this spring rain continues, the fields near Duanzhou in Chaisha River may be flooded by spring floods. Shun Zechuan gave Kong Ling the order of the Duanzhou Dam last month, but he forgot to ask today. Now Fei Sheng should be back. Shun Zechuan lifted the bamboo curtain, looking for the clogs kicked off by him in the sleeping room, ready to call Fei Sheng to come in and question. Xiao Qie had taken off his armor a long time ago, lying on the bed with his arms folded, and found sleepy. He turned over and turned his head up when Lanju picked up the wooden clogs. Shun Zechuan was unprepared, startled, and the clogs dropped. Xiao Qie just hung up and asked, "Is the master's thing real?" Shun Zechuan's expression narrowed slightly, and he nodded. Xiao Qie watched Shun Zechuan nod, his heart hanging all the way out of the ditch. He fell back to the quilt, spread his arms, and looked almost dead. Shun Zechuan braced his bed and looked at Xiao Qie, and said tentatively, "Did you come back for this matter?" Xiao Qie ran all over the north to find a lamp, stared at Xiao Jiming and wrote a dozen letters to the master. As a result, he didn't see each other, and people were gone. He was silent for a long time and said, "What about Yang Heru?" Shun Zechuan gestured cruelly around his neck. Xiao Qie looked cold for a while, then turned over suddenly, burying his face in the pillow, and not showing it to Shun Zechuan. If he had a tail, it would be time to pull it to the ground. "Let's go to the doctor in Jueshi." Xiao Qie paused before he said, "Yudu still has a hospital." Shun Zechuan didn't say a word, covered his cold hand on the side of Xiao Qie's neck, and touched his cheek upward. Xiao Qie caught this hand and held it in his palm. The rain wiped out the anger, and the rest was loss and panic. He tried to ease the mood, but it felt too complicated. "See Ian." Shun Zechuan called him. Xiao Qie said, "There are countless masters of Xinglin who are reclusive in the world, and some are looking for some, as long as they are doctors." Shun Zechuan pulled out his hand suddenly. Xiao Qie wanted to sit up as soon as his palm was empty, but Shun Zechuan pressed his back and pressed him back. Shun Zechuan braced his arm, a rare toughness. He bowed his head and said, "You have heard Master Qianquo's words. A master may not be able to eradicate it completely. But this body is not so bad." He slowed his voice. "My pills are being taken on time and I haven't gotten sick this year." Xiao Qie's ambushing back was tight. Shun Zechuan put his head on Xiao Qie's back shoulder and said softly, "I won't leave you." The rain outside was dense, and Xiao Qie's chest was wet. Shun Zechuan's side face was pasted on Xiao Qie's body across the fabric. "There was a scar here." "You lied to me." Xiao Qie also answered softly. Xiao Qie used to think that Xiao Fengshu would not leave him, but he was so rushed separately that he did not even say goodbye to his father. There is a boundary between man and man. Crossing over and calling it death is another world that can't catch up. "You gave this life to Tai Fu." Xiao Qie's voice seemed dull in the dimness. "You made an oath to him to kill vendetta, and you stand alone in front of the family without any fear. You are going to let me go and hurt themselves in Chazhou and Dunju. These are the hidden dangers left by those two accidents." They were hidden in Xiao Qie's heart and became intolerable after Xiao Fengshu's departure. Xiao Qie would be afraid if he remembered it. His panic came not only from Shun Zechuan's body, but also from Shun Zechuan. Xiao Qie said, "Lanju, you can keep me hard. The author has something to say, only 1,000 words today, 2 chapters tomorrow." Feeling bad during this time, the update time is pushed back 1 hour, and it will be updated every night at 8 p.m. Children who want to take the college entrance examination hurriedly study to be happy. It is easy to get tired of the long story, and the final volume is not satisfactory. Today, I am adjusting my status and can feel that I am recovering. Moving from 4th to 6th month next month, I can see if I can save it in these days. It's exactly 240 days to start today. Oh my God. When I wrote the outline, I thought that the limit of 600,000 words was over, and now I don't think it will reach 900,000. The handling of the final volume is very difficult. How to say, it is very difficult. It is the cause of anxiety during this time. I feel that I have handled it badly. However, this is also the original intention of the practice. I still want to be more compact and see if these chapters can bring back my own rhythm. The wish is over in one go. Everyone has worked hard for these 8 months. This chapter is empty. Please continue from the next one. This chapter is empty. Please continue from the next one. Xiao Qie said not tired, but fell asleep in a whisper. The time for him to rest in the 2nd Battalion was very tight, because Luoshan was close to Duanzhou and the road was smooth, so he could rush back to sleep with Lanju. Xiao Qie said not tired, but fell asleep in a whisper. The time for him to rest in the 2nd Battalion was very tight, because Luoshan was close to Duanzhou and the road was smooth, so he could rush back to sleep with Lanju. In the middle of the night, there were a few distant spring thunders, and the rain became heavier. Xiao Qie had something in mind, and Yin Shi woke up. Shun Zechuan was holding his uncle to breathe well and slept soundly. Xiao Qie listened to Lanzu's breathing for a while, and he was inexplicable. Shun Zechuan was awake and uttered a voice. He liked to prolong his nasal sound, and he couldn't tell whether it was painful or cool every time. Xiao Qie bit him, letting him shake lightly in his breath. Don't bite. Shun Zechuan didn't wake up, his voice was dumb, his eyes didn't open, he said indistinctly, red. It's really red. Shun Zechuan was awake a bit, and was forced to hide nowhere, next to each other, as if attacked by rain. There was no distance between them, and the sweat spread to the chest, soaking up the bedding. Xiao Qie bowed his head, and put his ear against Lanzu's lips. Shun Zechuan is going to break. In this wet and sticky atmosphere, I know what Xiao Qie wants to hear. His mixed nasal voice said love, his eyes filled with ambiguity, and he trembled intermittently in the waves of beatings. The disadvantage of being too tacit is that when you leave for a moment, you will be mad. You have to slacken up and make up for the gap of separation with joy. Xiao Qie wanted. Still want. Okay. Shun Zechuan didn't hold back, his wet neck was slightly lifted, which was fragile when bearing. The noise of the rain was noisy. When the door rang, Shun Zechuan raised his hand and hung up, but was caught in the wrist in midair. Xiao Qie held his wrist, and the dark-colored arm held him firmly. The people outside the door waited for a while and knocked again. Shun Zechuan said depressively, no, not Fi. Xiao Qie didn't care who was at the door, he wanted to occupy. Only he can see, bite, and force Lanju to ask for mercy. The two men staggered. Chuana. It's 2 minutes later. Cheng Feng is going to go down to see the field. Will you go? If I go, I'll prepare the clothes for you, and you can drink the soup before passing by. Ji Gang got up early and punched a few come here with the soup. Xiao Qie angrily hissed and pushed the excess away, restraining Lanju. It's too deep. Shun Zechuan said silently. Too. He tilted his head to bury the smooth pant in the bedding, hiding in the depth of the rain. Xiao Qie was also panting. He laughed dangerously in that heavy gasp, without stopping, admiring the flushing on the side of Lanzu's neck. Terribly. Xiao Qie thought maliciously. He was relieved by this possession. Ji Gang did not hear the movement, turned to ask Fei Sheng, when did the governor sleep last night? Fei Sheng thought I couldn't say this. He gave Ji Gang's bird cage an umbrella and said, it's a late night. Mr. Yu is back these days and wants to tell the governor about the Liu Jushu men. Don't you retire early yesterday? Ji Gang was worried that Shun Zechuan fell ill in the spring rain. Zhu Jing will have to wait until the rain stops when he returns this time. He is not in a hurry to do business. It's such a rationale, Fei Sheng echoed. Master, your elderly knows best. Fei Sheng just wanted to quickly send Master out of the yard. The second grandfather was still in the room. After a while, I met him, wouldn't it be over? He lifted Ji Gang's birdcage and said, Master, why doesn't this bird look mentally? Don't freeze it. When you're full, you'll be sleepy. This bird has the virtue of Ding Dao's sparrow. Ji Gang hasn't heard Shun Zechuan's answer to the door for so long, and is more worried, saying, there's no one in the room to serve. Will I take you to the side hall? Let's drink a few cups of hot tea, and the master should wake up in a moment. Ji Gang lifted the birdcage back, and when Fei Sheng picked up the soup, he held up his hand and said, I can't sit still, go to Yuanzhua to see, the medicine is still boiled. After a while, Chuana wakes up, you ask he can't get out, so heavy rain, I have to follow. Fei Sheng responded, bending over and sending Ji Gang to the porch. After watching Ji Gang going out, he hurriedly carried his robe and ran back, yelling against the door and whispering, Second Master, It will be 3 moments later. The gentleman should be here. Our governor. The door opened to the sides in a rush. Xiao Qie was wearing a loose robe, red was still around his neck, and his sweat had not returned. Fei Sheng dared to look straight, and immediately stepped back to salute, and said, "Greeting to the second grandpa." Xiao Qie took the hot pupper waiting beside him, wiped the sweat from his neck, and said, "Hurry up, your master usually sleeps late and sleeps lightly, can withstand your toss like this?" Fei Sheng responded and said, "Yi is still thoughtful." Xiao Qie threw Pa back to the tray, and was trying to say something. Suddenly, Ji Gangyuan, who had just left, returned and went down the corridor, staring straight at the end. Fei Sheng looked back and said, "Hey, my mother." Ji Gang walked meteorically towards this side. Fei Sheng looked at Ji Gang's complexion and wanted to retreat, and he wanted to see it again, so he stepped forward boldly, stopped Ji Gang, and said with a grin, "Master, what has fallen? It's okay to just send a person over here. Why did you come back specially? It rained so much." Ji Gang couldn't get around Fei Sheng from the left and right. He suddenly lifted Fei Sheng's plaque, and put Fei Sheng, who was higher than himself, on the side. Xiao Qie said, "Master." "I'm not your master." Ji Gang yelled, his hands trembling, watching Xiao Qie's waves. He took a half step back, pointing at him, "How dare you, how dare you." He already felt wrong from the last whipping, but he didn't dare to think about Shen Zichuan with those thoughts, so he comforted himself in all possible ways, and was still beaten by the head. "That's Shen Zichuan." Ji Gang was raining on his back, both ridiculous and furious. He buzzed in his ears, as if slapped head into his face, stepped back unsteadily. Fei Sheng held up Master Fu, but Ji Gang shook his hands and asked, "You know? Do you know?" Fei Shengqiang laughed. "This." Ji Gang threw the bird cage to the ground, and the bird tossed in the cage in a panic, rolled a few circles and fell under the steps. His hand was shaking so badly that he was still fierce, and when he punched out, he smashed into the face, making Xiao Qie's teeth ooze with blood. Fei Sheng had rushed up, holding Ji Gang's arm, and shouting, "Master, Master is angry." The rain crackled. Xiao Qie pressed his tongue against the smell of blood, and said, "Master wants to hit me. I am willing to suffer. Master wants me to kneel, and I am willing to kneel. But if Master wants to find a door for Lanju, dear, no one can do this." Ji Gang attacked side by side this year and did not dare to push Shen Zichuan too tightly, and he was still in a hurry. He found a few girls in Xizhou and mentioned them to Shen Zichuan. Shen Zichuan did not respond, but only said that there were individuals who were close to him. Ji Gang did not see this thoughtful person in Duanzhou until he was wondering if Shen Zichuan was coaxing himself, but he did. "You asterisk 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 asterisk." Ji Gang broke his arm and said arrogantly, "I killed you, jerk. The author has something to say. I can't wait to publish it first." Today it is said that the 2 chapters are actually 4,000 words. Sorry, 2K Novel Reading Network. Ji Gang watched Shen Zichuan grow up to such a large size, and did not want Shen Zichuan to seal the visit. He only hoped that Shen Zichuan would be safe and smooth, and that he would be able to form a group of children in the future. Xiao Qie's foot in Badu, anyone can forget, Ji Gang can't forget, this is his only son. Ji Gang watched Shen Zichuan grow up to such a large size, and did not want Shen Zichuan to seal the visit. He only hoped that Shen Zichuan would be safe and smooth, and that he would be able to form a group of children in the future. Xiao Qie's foot in Badu, anyone can forget, Ji Gang can't forget, this is his only son. Ji Gang now remembered what Xiao Qie said in Xizhou, as if it had been premeditated. This asterisk 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 had long been thinking of a showdown with him. It's ridiculous that everyone can see clearly, but he just deceived himself and justified the junk in his heart. What brotherhood is shit? Ji Gang made a few punches to resolve his hatred. He picked up the whip on the sideline and said, "I led the wolf into the room and believed your kid's asterisk 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 word. You've been thinking of Chuana as early as Ibaraki." Xiao Qie's goodness was not expected at all remembered our old accounts. He lifted his whip and was furious. "I will kill you. Master, master." How could Fei Sheng allow Ji Gang to continue, persuading, the second grandfather is willing to be beaten by the master, and he really wants to tell the master. This can't stand outsiders, just sit down in his yard. Talk about it, the prince is waiting for you. You get away. Ji Gang yelled, you guys are a bunch. Jin Iwei in this courtyard has been instructed by Ji Gang. All said that he was an apprentice to Ji Gang. Looking at Ji Gang as a fierce tiger, who dare to stop it? This whip is still Xiao Qie, which is much heavier than the one in Xizhou, and it looks like it's exploded when it is clicked, and the hot pain straightens up. Ji Gang was really angry. Unlike the one in Xizhou, he couldn't stop the robe. All the blood strips hit him, and Xiao Qie took a few breaths. Ji Gang saw Xiao Qie admit his mistake, and hated, I tell him whether it's your offense. No, Xiao Qie refused to let it go. He wouldn't tell the truth, there is more to go in the world, except Shen Lanju, I won't give it to anyone. Ji Gang was dizzy and pointed at him with a whip, and said, if you want to kill my son, you will have to kill him for the rest of your life. If you don't want a wife or a child, why don't you clean it yourself? The broken sleeves in Boju are not a secret. Ji Gang saw many of them when he was a Jin Iwei. Now inseparable, like glue, but after a few years, they have to marry a wife and have children, not to mention Xiao Qie or Xiao Fengshu's sister-in-law. Xiao Jiming didn't enter the battle, Xiao Qie was going to take over this burden, and later made the North Wolf, marrying or not wifing is not his own business, that is the whole thing from North Rail riding. The Xiao family sat on an iron ride of 120,000. The two formed a good relationship with Qin and Jin. The friendship between Zhongbua and Li Bei was solid. Nods in public and private disciplines should nod, but the premise is that Xiao Qie is a girl. If he is a girl, even if he has a petite character, as long as Shen Zichuan wants, Ji Gang is willing. As long as the master willing to agree, I let sister to propose marriage, it is not I have married into the door. Kai Xiao Yi even beat Xiao Fengshu are both survive, Ji Gang to face these whips not afraid. Since Ji Gang is going to settle accounts today, then Ji Gang nodded when he said today. Ji Gang was kicked back, Fei Sheng quickly helped people. Ji Gang felt that Xiao Qie was not asking for a marriage, but was forcing him. He had never seen such a man with such a righteousness. Xiao Qie braced his knees and chased while winning, and said, Lan Ju took my big sister's bracelet. It was my Xiao Xian. How can master find a woman for him again? If he really sees him, he will be dejected. Master, if you want children, Ding Dao and Li Xiong are still young, and you can relieve your boredom by staying with master. If master is happy, I can raise them to 27 or 8 and send them out. Ji Gang looked at Xiao Qie seriously and arbitrarily. Ding Dao and Li Xiong are all children, and they are all 10, so it is too late to throw out the door to do business. This is not the case at all. Master nodded, Xiao Qie held his arm, and drew down. If master does not nod, I will call my father. Ji Gang was so prestigious in Jin Iwei because he reasoned. He thought too much about Shen Zichuan in this matter. If Xiao Qie sat down to reason with Ji Gang, he would definitely not be able to convince Ji Gang. Shen Zichuan's relationship with the North Korean military rations is bound to worry that Ji Gang will now agree that whether it is for military rations or the situation. Ji Gang didn't want Xiao Qie to be faceless and skinless, but forced him to the door. Without a nod today, he would not go. Ji Gang squeezed the words from his teeth. You seldom use this set of rhetoric to lie to me, even if your uncle really comes, I will not see you. Then seeing Lanju, Xiao Qie said without saying a word. Dad, Lanju doesn't understand these ceremonies. Without you to take care of him, he will be deceived by my aunt to leave Libei as a brother. Xiao Qie got stuck for a moment, and quickly answered, be my brother. If you want to complete me like this, I am also happy. Ji Gang threw the whip on the ground and said unbearably, shut up. He had to refute Xiao Qie, and then gritted his teeth, you want to come in. Xiao Qie's robe was slightly open, and the flushing around his neck faded. Ji Gang did not let him in, and he did not argue. The rain was rapid, and there was a bit of coldness under the eaves. Ji Gang's anger remained undiminished. Xiao Qie looked calmly and said positively, I have thought about Master's worries. Brother and sister-in-law have a good relationship, and now there are children and children in the future. I don't need to regenerate from the north, and I don't have that idea. Master looks at Lan Ju as he grows up, hoping that his family is happy. I know, I also want to. I love him and respect him and grow old with him, Isn't it also good? Master can't believe me. I am afraid Lanju will be wronged in the future looking for a woman for Lanju. I really couldn't control it, but I gave him this life, and he wanted someone else, just to kill me. Xiao Qie is not an ordinary man. He has both courage and means. Now he is a pair of beasts and looks good, but is he over? If he changes his mind, there are 10,000 ways to resolve this relationship. Ji Gang was most afraid of Shen Zichuan's loneliness 100 years later. Now everyone calls Shen Zichuan a prince. Only here is Ji Gang. Shen Zichuan is Chuana and there is something to worry about. Ji Gang didn't dare to gamble, but Thaksin couldn't believe it. Xiao Qie did not get a reply for a while, listening to the sound of wooden clogs approaching behind. He tilted his head slightly and saw Shen Zichuan's neatly groomed clothes, and glanced at him with a fan. No, Ji Gang said as if he was answering Xiao Qie, but looking at Shen Zichuan, his old face was covered with vicissitudes, and he said, "This won't work." Yarrow Wenyu in the yard next door was lighting incense. He squeezed the citron and smoked the tiger slaves against him. As soon as the rain stopped for 2 days, it was time for mosquitoes, and Yarrow Wenyu couldn't stand the smell. He was looking at the smoke and was taken away. Qiao Tianya sniffed the incense to the tip of his nose, wrinkled, and said to Yarrow Wenyu, "It's too pungent. Where can I get it?" "Give him back for your own use." Given by businessmen, Yarrow Wenyu turned the four-wheeled vehicle and faced the courtyard. The Rugao in Liuju City is expensive. Qiao Tianya took the incense and said, "A smell of stinky tofu. People in Liuju eat stinky tofu." Yarrow Wenyu raised his hand and waved. "Wake up with Fei Sheng a moment, don't put this incense in Fujuan's house." Qiao Tianya felt that he was avoiding himself, and he lifted his feet and jammed the four-wheeled vehicle, and said, "You can't see him a few times, how can you be familiar? It's all a job for the government monarch." Yarrow Wenyu paused and looked at Qiao Tianya. "No one is unfamiliar." Qiao Tianya was originally a little interested, but he gradually smiled in the face of Yarrow Wenyu. Yarrow Wenyu was reluctant to look at Qiao Tianya before, and would be ashamed to avoid it, as if always remembering the embarrassment of the night, but now he is frank, as if he is still the same piece of jade and has not touched Ding Dian ***. No unfamiliar. Qiao Tianya is no different from Fei Sheng, Qiao Tianya is no different from Kong Ling, Qiao Tianya is no different from everyone that Yarrow Wenyu meets, he is no longer a secret and special one. Yarrow Wenyu slumped his sleeves and was able to continue to be a fairy. "It's raining today, if you are not in a hurry, you will use rice to go out again. Cheng Feng and Jujing will come in the afternoon, and the genie ride should be reported. You should watch them before going out." Yarrow Wenyu said, looking at the uncle of the four-wheeler, and then looking at Qiao Tianya, he said, "Stuck." He smiled lightly, like helplessness, and self-deprecating. "The sister-in-law can get around, I can't do it, don't make fun of me." The wind was knocking on the iron horse, and several raindrops splashed on the thin blanket, and Qiao Tianya moved his foot away. He was usually so skillful, but a little embarrassed in Yarrow Wenyu's gaze. Yarrow Wenyu turned the four-wheeled vehicle into the house, and the car was on the floor, making a string of sounds. The wrists were exposed during the push, and Qiao Tianya's red rope was also tied. In the action, it was covered by the piled-up wide sleeves and disappeared in Yunbai. Ji Gang put his arms on his back, facing the wall, as if asleep. Shen Zichuan put the folding fan to the edge of the bed and asked, "Master, is he asleep?" Ji Gang opened his eyes and said, "I know Master is asleep, and I have to ask." Shen Zichuan pulled the chair closer as he was a kid and said, "I haven't had a gossip with the Master all night since I left Jiaoxin Temple." "Come for a man tonight," Ji Gang said, and the anger couldn't come out to Shen Zichuan, scattered in his chest, and turned into another kind of blame and discomfort. "Not willing. Mr. Compliment him," Shen Zichuan said softly. "The genius is not what Mr. Wen told me. Is the strange talent IKEA?" Ji Gang sat up and looked at Shen Zichuan. "The wizards are going to seek the world. Will you sit with him in a chair in the future?" Shen Zichuan's expression was well behaved, and he squinted and said, "That's not what I say." Ji Gang sighed in the candlelight. "After a long time," he said bitterly, "Tai Fu asked you how to handle yourself if you held Jin Yiwei. I should think, This is not for students. Who can hold Jin Iwei in the world? Hiding everyone, I have taught you too much. You learn so well, don't you understand? Today's wall jade is paired, and the two tigers will fight each other in the future. Xiao Qie wasn't bad, but it was so good that Ji Gang could not rest assured. If I were a useful person, Ji Gang had a complex look and looked at Shen Zichuan. If you have brothers alive, it would be fine to gamble with him, but I'm old and useless. When I'm 100 years old, you will be alone. To everyone in this world, only you, how can I feel relieved? 2K Novel Reading Network. The rain in the courtyard stopped, the moon was late and the room was dim. The rain in the courtyard stopped, the moon was late and the room was dim. Shen Zichuan's drooping eyes were hidden in the dimness, like a mooring tired park, through a long night tide. When he looked at Ji Gang again, he used the eyes he had never seen before, as if he had taken off the skin of a man named Fu Jun, leaving a place of moonlight. If there were no master and Cian, I would still be me, but it would no longer be that I was afraid of everyone in the world, but everyone in the world would be afraid of me. I bleed Shen Wei's blood and did not need sons-in-law. Ji Gang was in great pain and almost burst into tears. He said, "You are my son. I'm master's son, but my name is Shen Zichuan. Sir gave me a poem, but I'm not an emperor. The supreme overlooker in this world is either wearing a crown or an emperor. The emperor must not only check the balance of powers, but also have the mind to accommodate the common people. The emperor supported by the heyday is an invincible benevolent. There is a storm in Shen Zichuan's eyes. He is the shower that swept the rivers and mountains, the blade that tears up the world, but not the emperor who created the prosperity. There is an iron ride of 120,000 from the north, and Martaz Hongbo is okay, but Cian gave me the lifeblood. I have his horse and his brother's food. He is willing to leave the grassy field from the north, in my Duanzhou horse race. Master, he is not afraid of my garrison, nor am I afraid of his iron ride. One day I will ban the deer that Li lost, and Cian will ban me. Sun and moon were born in the world, tens of thousands. There is no disability for years. This is the stability that the world is looking forward to, and we are balanced. Scorching sun and glowing moon, the suspension of war is the beginning of another battle, and no king can tolerate their coexistence in the east. Only when Xiao Qie and Shen Zichuan are together can Li Bei and Zhongbo get the chance to rest and recuperate. Xiao Jiming built a horse farm in Luoshan, and Shen Zichuan acquiesced. This was his concession to leave the north, and it was also an opportunity for him to leave the north. The horse road built by Zhongbo will break the border between the two places, and they merge to form a behemoth that entangles the northeast. Ji Gang sat silently and said, he punched Ji Jia well, and came and went freely, for what he feared. Even so, you have no sons and daughters with him. The matter is unresolved, and North and Zhongbo will not last long. Xiao Qie put on his armor and waited in the room for Shen Zichuan to return. The sound of a cheer came from under the eaves, and Fei Sheng raised the curtain for Yarrow Wenyu and said, the prince has not yet returned. The blanket on Yarrow Wenyu's lap was a little damp. He propped up the four-wheeler and said, I'm looking for the second grandfather. Fei Sheng is a bit difficult, Xiao Qie said, I'm here. Yarrow Wenyu declined Fei Sheng and turned in. Xiao Qie folded his legs, sat upright at the table, put the soldier's book to his hand, and said, What's wrong with you? Ange were looking for me. It's rare to see Yi. Some things are inconvenient to write a letter, so I can only discuss it in person. Yarrow Wenyu took out the pad and wiped the sweat from his hand. Is Yi empty? Xiao Qie leaned back and said, What's the matter? You have to bypass Lanju to talk to me. Yarrow Wenyu wiped his hands clean, folded the parcels, and retracted them in his sleeves. He was not in a hurry, saying in the endless rain, it is naturally more appropriate to talk to the second grandfather about leaving the north. Now that the Queen Mother is defeated in Ju, Shui Yanqing will take Han Ji's military power next. At that time, Chu Jun ascended the throne. In order to stabilize the commander-in-chief, Chidong will certainly be rewarded. Will the second grandfather go to Bian County for an appointment? Of course Xiao Qie has to go. The visit to Bian County determines whether Hassan's raid on Duanzhou can be successful or not, besides Thaksin Chi Zhuyin. Yarrow Wenyu got the answer from Xiao Chie's default. He turned around and said, "Shi-sun." Xiao Jieming inherited the title of Xiao Fengshu. Xiao Yi should be called Shizi, and he changed his name and continued, "Shizi treats, is there an enlightened sir in the realm?" Xiao Chie's forefinger pinched on the table lightly. He said, "You want to teach me." Xiao Chie was quite keen, and he found meaning in the topic of Yarrow Wenyu's change. Xue Xiuzhua's Chu Jun is about to ascend the throne, and Qi Zhuyin is to be sealed. When the battle with Bian Shou is finished, they may part ways with Chidong. Yarrow Wenyu was already thinking about the son-in-law if Shen Zichuan was going to capture the capital. "We are the wolf from the north." Xiao Chie looked up slightly. Shen said, "Not to be emperor." Xiao Chie and Shen Zichuan had no children. If Xiao Yi went to Zhongbua to be instructed by Mr. Yarrow Wenyu, then Xiao Chie would understand what they meant. Xiao Yang was the successor of Shen Zichuan. This was a good deal for Li Taibei. It was so costly that Xiao Chie didn't want to agree. The second man is thinking of the monarch, and refuses to let Xiao replace the monarch, but even if there is no son, he will not be surnamed Shen, Yarrow Wenyu told Xiao Chie. Temple. It is impossible for Shen Zichuan to let Shen Wei continue to be a lonely ghost in the desert countryside of Dunju and enter the temple to enjoy fireworks. What he wants to judge is the blood of the Shen family. Xiao Chie said, "Yi is a son from the north. My brother will never agree to this." Yarrow Wenyu was silent. He changed his tone and talked with his friends instead, saying, "Do you have any other method?" Yi Yuli Li, "The house is not cold, but Yarrow Wenyu's face is not good. There are countless heroes in the world. Do you know why I went to Zhongbua to come to Lanju?" Xiao Chie's eyes were deep painted. Yarrow Wenyu is not afraid of Xiao Chie. As long as he can finish the game, he is not afraid of anyone. He said, "I watched him flee northward with you, but stopped at Zhongbua. I thought he was going to wash the charges for Shen Wei, but he didn't care about it. He doesn't take Zhongbua as his homeland, nor think of the puppet as a home, and advance and retreat from his thoughts. I know he is not an emperor, but I still need to help him, because he is a born puppet master. Your father knows that Zhongbua is rising rapidly. He allowed Lanju to enter north, because Xiao Yuan was Lanzu's only choice. Xiao Fengshu was the wolf king who opened up the northern border. He stood in Luoxiaguan and could smell Emperor Guangqing's emperor, and at the most appropriate time became the surnamed king of Daju heavy soldiers. He was far more than his sons saw. Far. Shen Zichuan has only one future. Without Xiao Chie and Xiao Yang, he would never allow Shen Zichuan to return to Zhongbua alive. Lanju dared to get there, Xiao Chie said, "That's his." "That's his," Yarrow Wenyu said, "if there is Xiao Yang." The rain was chaotic, and Xiao Chie didn't respond. Chu Jun feels cool at night. She can't sleep well after being ill, and often wakes up. "Opening my eyes to see the sky at this moment, when the time was up, I didn't need the maid to call, so I turned up." The court ladies are new, kneeling and arranging Li Jianting's robes. When she sits in front of the mirror, she carries a box to take care of her hair. Li Jianting was much thinner this time, looking more and more stern. There was no woman's tenderness. Li Jianting didn't sleep well and was recovering from a serious illness. He was inevitably tired, and his ears felt cold. The Gongyi who leaned over to wear earrings for Chu Jun hadn't responded yet, and saw Chu Jun stood up in a dang manner, looking pale and whispering in patience, "Get away." Gongyi in the temple knelt in a panic, not knowing where the mold of Chu Jun was touched. Li Jianting clenched his lip line and saw himself blurred in the mirror in a dead silence. She stared at this herself, and said after a long time, "I was taught in the gentleman's hall, without earrings." Gongyi nodded a few heads, and responded timidly. Li Jianting didn't want them to go hand in hand and put on her own jacket. The expensive material was covered outside, like her armor. She felt better, but still didn't speak. When she went out, she saw a familiar figure under the eaves. Fu Man ushered in, opened an umbrella for Li Jianting, and charmingly said, "Today the rain is heavy, and the slave has prepared a sedan chair. His Royal Highness can take a nap, and the slave will call you in front of the church to ensure that there is no delay." Li Jianting didn't leave, smiled, and said, "My father-in-law, are you busy investigating the case?" Fu Man didn't dare to urge, saying, "Where slaves will investigate the case, it is Yuan Fu's point of mention, and they have sent several adults from the Ministry of Criminal Affairs to supervise it." This means that he did not decide the case arbitrarily, but passed the hand of Kong Yang and had little to do with him. Li Jianting didn't blink her eyes. She said, "Isn't it possible for Feng Quan to come out?" Fu Man's heart turned and he was worried, and said, "He is Mu Mu's brother, and he has some relationship with Siyuan Bureau, and the punishment department is not good enough to let him go. He ran several times before and after to run the courtyard, and Yuan Fu also as mentioned, he is a good man." Fu Man is thinking that Feng Quan can return to the palace to do business. He must have been serving Chu Jun for a long time, and there is a friendship between master and servant. Therefore, he is not in front of Li Jianting to vilify Feng Quan, knowing that Li Jianting is still partial. Coming to Japan, as long as he keeps this position, Li Jianting will be tired of Feng Quan sooner or later. Li Jianting said, "I've been sick and I haven't believed. What's going on?" Fu Man held an umbrella for Li Jianting and drew himself in the rain, saying, "It's investigation, Your Highness, watch out for your feet. The steps are slippery and your slavery. This case is bad for food." The slavery checked with the Ministry of Justice. On the day of His Highness's diet, the Siyuan Bureau had the biggest problem. It was too mixed up and the minded people were broken. He pushed his role in this case clean and let the penal department supervise it, so that Feng Quan died, which was also Kong Yang's business. Yuan Fu is her teacher, who decides whether she can get to the throne or not. Li Jianting is unhappy and can't breathe with Kong Yang. Li Jianting did not intend to go to the sedan, but she temporarily changed her mind and bent in. Blessed with joy, he called His Royal Highness to slow down, and he closed the car curtain for Li Jianting, and urged the ***** to go to Mingletang. By the time Li Jianting arrived at Mingletang, Center Yu had been waiting. He stood under the eaves and frowned as Li Jianting got out of the sedan chair. In the past, Chu Jun did not pay attention to these things. That is how he got the courtier's blue eyes. Why did the Queen Mother lose power and couldn't even take a few steps? Center Yu saluted Li Jianting standing under the eaves in return. Center Yu didn't enter immediately, but said calmly, "Spring rain is as expensive as oil, and the 8 cities and Liangtian have been affected by this rain. His Highness has not yet ascended the throne and has no title. How can he ride in the palace?" Li Jianting seemed to be epiphany, admitting mistakes and saying, "Students know something wrong." Hearing this, Fu Man followed. How could Chu Jun be burdened? But he arranged the sedan chair and said quickly, "His Royal Highness is recovering from his illness, the jade body is expensive, and the rain is heavy." Center Yu's face changed suddenly, and he yelled, "I talk to His Highness as teachers and students. How dare I intervene?" Fu Man's heart was terrible, and he immediately knelt down and scratched his head, "Slave, slave." In a hurry, he even committed the taboo of cabinet ministers. Center Yu and Kong Zheng are both people who have experienced Pan's chaos in the government. They hate the internal affairs to intervene in government affairs. Fu Manping usually runs in the courtyard of the office. Center Yu saw that as soon as he arrived at Chu Jun today, he dared to arrange a sedan chair to intervene. If he stayed for a few more days, it would be a mess. You dare to break Chu Jun's habits today, and you dare to mess with the monarch's administration in the future. Center Yu smirked, "The thief is bold." Fu Manzhong got bluish forehead, new injuries covered old injuries. Li Jianting said, "I'm not good, teacher." Center Yu immediately said, "His Royal Highness is Chu Jun, who is a divorcer. Come, grab his mask, and drag him down." Fu Man is the ***** of Sai Lijian. According to the rules of Yongyi, Center Yu must not drink him like this. He listened to the footsteps of the guard, his hands were shaking, and he walked towards Li Jianting's knees, and said, Slavery should be dead. Slave. The guard couldn't help but pick off Fu Man's mask, dragged him to the open space in front of Mingli Hall, and the rain poured. Fu Man knelt in the center, his lips became blue. Center Yu said, "Slap." The guard rolled up his robe and slap in front of Fu Man. Fu Man was beaten so loudly in his left ear that he did not dare to hide or shout. Center Yu didn't stop, turned around and opened the curtain, motioned to Li Jianting to enter, and hung Fu Man in the open space. The applause didn't stop. The author has something to say. Packed luggage an hour late. Oz, thank you for reading 2K Novel Reading Network. Mingletang didn't call for service at the moment. Center Yu lowered the curtain, led Li Jianting to sit, and returned to his usual look, saying, "You shouldn't let your highness come sick with a serious illness, but you have to urge his highness to come." Mingletang didn't call for service at the moment. Center Yu lowered the curtain, led Li Jianting to sit, and returned to his usual look, saying, "You shouldn't let your highness come sick with a serious illness, but you have to urge his highness to come." Li Jianting took a seat and said, "Teacher, but it doesn't matter." Center Yu was heartbroken, listening to the intermittent applause from outside, and carefully lifted the bamboo curtain by the window. After confirming that there was no one before and after, he told Li Jianting, "The Dancheng field tax is about to be closed, and the officials involved are very wide. Liang Yishan has begun the inspection of the taxation of Tanjoda was followed by the Tanaka flower house. His Royal Highness stayed in the palace alone, and the officials were anxious. The harem is forbidden and foreign ministers are not allowed inside. Li Jianting had been poisoned some time ago. The cabinet was worried that the Queen Mother jumped off the wall and took Chu Jun's life as a threat." Li Jianting's white cheek was still covered with a velvet collar. She frowned slightly, and the frown on her brows moved lightly, saying, "Dan Cheng-tien's tax case is over, and the field has been measured. It's a critical time, so don't delay. Teacher, we don't have to slow down for me, just follow the law." Center Yu was quite prejudiced against Li Jianting before, but Chu Jun behaved dignifiedly and was very easy to learn. They respected them and respected him as a teacher. Now he is willing to put his life aside for Mintian. Center Yu's mood was ups and downs, and he lifted his robe down to Li Jianting and knelt down, sulking and nodding, "His Royal Highness." "What a grievance, Your Highness." Li Jianting stood up to help Center Yu, saying, "Teacher, please get up quickly." Center Yu wiped tears with his sleeve and said, "His Royal Highness is careful in the palace. If the Queen dares to threaten Her Highness, the officials will definitely fight with each other." Li Jianting sighed, "I'm a deity, but a teacher. Hacheng Hu of Wucheng and Han from Wucheng are the world's best friends. This is a dangerous job." Center Yu saw that Li Jianting was so frank with himself, thinking of Han Yang, not only was greatly sentimental. Those who were courtiers, professing loyal ministers, let Chu Jun be trapped in the palace. They lived in tears for a while, and said, "Han Yu held the army in his hands." Chan and others did not dare to act rashly and suffered. "Your Royal Highness. Han Mi Fei Gongye knows all about Chao Yo, and he is too narrow-minded to tolerate people. The difficult part is the teacher. The 8th Battalion is a capital. In recent years, due to the old traditions, Ji Yuan has done nothing since the Xianda years." Li Jianting said here, slowing down his voice, "Du Jun and the Queen had a close relationship. It was really difficult for the teachers to punish Han Yang. Center Yu couldn't bear to want Chu Jun to see so clearly, and said, now the commander is still in the capital, Chidong's garrison is just outside the city gate. The situation is urgent, and the officials must remove Han Yang as soon as possible. Li Jianting said, the commander accompanied the elder lady to Guining, but the accompanying troops did not have thousands of people. He really started to work, for fear that Chidong was too late to rescue, and it was dangerous. There are 20,000 sergeants in the 8th Battalion. They are not only familiar with the streets of Lijiu, but also the opening and closing of the city gates. Han Yun also has Jin Iwei as an eyeliner, which can stare at Qi Zhuin's movements at any time. In prison that day, Qi Zhuyin confused and deceived Han Yang, and half a month later, Han Yang had responded long ago. Li Jianting stood up and saw through the gap of the bamboo curtain that Fu Man was still being beaten. Her expression remained unchanged, but her eyes were rather indifferent, and she still had a gentle tone to Center Yu. I have a plan, and I can remove Han Yu. Center Yu immediately said, His Royal Highness, please. Since the Xian dynasty, the Nei dynasty has been shaped like a decoration. The East factory has no vacancies, so Han Yang is so proud of it, said Li Jianting. If you want to remove Han Yang, you must have an internal helper. Center Yu changed his color, and said in a horror, Pan Dang was in chaos for 10 years. He destroyed the Chao gang to this point, and the old man bowed his head to make the inner court return to power. His Royal Highness, these puppets are useless. Wrong, teacher, Li Jianting turned back and said to Center Yu, it is the emperor's fault to puppet the party. The inner concubine is the emperor's slave. They can use it, but they cannot reuse it. Li Jianting was taught by Xue Xiuzhua and was very familiar with Pan Dang from Yongyi to Xiandinian. She, like Kong Yang, Center Yu, and other cabinet courtiers, was also afraid of internal conflict. However, being a minister and being a monarch are two different things. The power around the authority is like a tide surging, and it cannot be completely eliminated. Only when it is used can it be contained. The Cold Food Festival is approaching, and the palace will set up 100 official banquets as usual. At that time, Han Kuan unloads his sword and enters. Li Jianting raised his hand and pulled out the Jin in the hair. It is the right time. As the commander of Jin Yiwei, and the governor of the 8th Battalion, Han Yi had the right to bring a knife. However, Li Jianheng was assassinated in the front of the Tianchen dynasty. The guards were ordered by the emperor. Now that there is no emperor in Daeju, Han Yang must unload his knife for a banquet. Center Yu looked at the Jin Yuan, holding Jin Yuan's slender fingers, which was especially pale because he lived in the deep courtyard for a long time. Chu Jun's disease was so thin that she could see the bones, and her wrists were covered between the fairs, exposing her hard bones. Center Yu lifted her robe and knelt down, sobbing down on the ground. Han Yun is carrying martial arts. If it is in danger, what should you do to hurt your highness? The marshal won the battle in Bian County in the spring. Yuan Fu can give a special seat to the table. Han Han is the governor of the army, allowing him to sit side by side with the marshal. Li Jianting thought deeply about the matter. Quan led, as long as Han Yu stepped into the door of the temple, he would never come back. When Center Yu heard this, he really learned the power of Chu Jun. The rivalry between Fuman and Fengquan began as early as the Emperor Tianchen. This investigation of Fuman put Fengquan in the first place, which is precisely to exclude dissidents. He wanted to ascend to the inner dynasty, and became the official seal of Li Jianting after he ascended the throne. This man is adept at flattery, and he has gone back and forth several times. If he is left alone, as long as the situation changes and Han Yi takes advantage, he may be bad. Li Jianting put Fengquan back to him because Fengquan will never be a traitor to Fu Man after this prison sentence. The two of them are afraid of each other, they will urge each other, and even continue to compete with each other in order to win the trust of Chu Jun Han. She is a capital of the military Wuyin and Jinia Wei. As long as he is dead, the 8th Battalion and Jinia Wei will fall into chaos, and she will be solved in an emergency. However, when Han Shi unloaded his knife to the banquet, he would definitely leave a confidant Jin Yiwei outside the palace. The time to kill him was very short. If he missed, he would endanger his courtiers when he raised his arm. The matter must be carefully arranged by the teacher and Yuan Fu, and there must be no leaks, Li Jianting said, leaning halfway down and raising Center Yu. The success or failure is here. The wind suddenly rolled the bamboo curtain. Center Yu nodded heavily against Li Jianting's gaze, and Shen Sheng said, the court and others must live up to His Royal Highness. Fu Man in the rain was beaten with deafness in both ears, his mouth was bleeding, he was crying, and saw Center Yu stepping out of the door, looking at him with a cold face. He whispered, slave knows wrong, sir, sir. Center Yu shrugged and said, if it is not for your highness, I will spare you today. Go on. The guard stepped back and stood under the eaves of Mingli Hall. Blessing forward on his knees, Chao Center Yu continued to scratch his head and said, what adults have learned is that slaves never dare. Li Jianting came out of the curtain, watching Fu Man's face burst into tears and said in tears, you go, clean up, change into a clean robe and wait in front of the hospital. Fu Man raised his arm and wiped the tears on his face, looked at the shoes exposed by Li Jianting, and scratched a few more heads, saying, slave obeys. When Fu Man got up, he hurriedly fished his wet robe, and across the heavy rain, he saw that there was no disappointment on Chu Jun's face, but only a touch of pity. Kong Yang did not dare to speak out when he was preparing. They talked in private houses and would not gather, so they visited by name. When the rain stops, the Cold Food Festival is blinking. Feng Quan was imprisoned in prison, and he has been recuperating in recent days. Today, he spent some flowers for the governor, bowed in front of the mirror, and exposed the trace of torture on his wrist when he raised his hand. Li Jianting didn't close her eyes, she looked at Feng Quan as if looking at it. Feng Quan shook his hand slightly in Li Jianting's gaze. To point something wrong, Li Jianting raised his finger, pinching Feng Quan's wrist, and took Hu Yuan back to his forehead. What do doctors say these days? Feng Quan listened to the wind when Gong Yi moved around, avoiding Li Jianting's gaze, and said, "Thanks to His Highness, the doctor said that there was no problem." Li Jianting stood up and the maiden behind her covered her robes. She turned her head to look at herself in the mirror, and she always seemed to stare at herself in the mirror, as if looking for something. Details of the Siyuan Bureau, you will tell me after the banquet. Li Jianting helped Zheng Baijin to stop looking at the ghost image and turned to the door of the palace. Feng Quan understood and stepped forward to support Li Jianting. Li Jianting took a few steps and stepped on the light on the ground. She looked down at the light, the polished floor reflecting the sky outside the door, as if she was standing among the clouds. At this moment, she was strangely childish, like nostalgia for this situation, standing for a long time. The blessing outside stood on the steps, waiting softly by the door. His Royal Highness, it's time. Feng Quan felt that his arms were slightly sinking, and the wind after the rain blew the golden pheasant beside Chu Junji, and the butterfly struck a spin and slammed into the cloud. Li Jianting stepped out. Han Yang took a bus to the front of the palace gate and met Helian, who when he got off. After waiting for a long time, Helian saw Han coming over, rushed to meet him, and entered the palace side by side, saying, "How can you not care these days? The imperial court now impeached me and said that I am occupying Mintian. This is not a hypothesis." Provocative. Han Zheng turned walnuts in his hand and said, "Do you say this to center Yu? Is he willing to believe it? He has the account given by Pan Yu, who has an estimate of the Bekengshan tax. Then think of a way." Helian, who followed Han and whispered, "They want to ban the Queen Mother. I can't even see the Queen Mother now. The Empress Dowager Han said that the mud bodhisattva crosses the river, and it is difficult for her to protect herself. This account has been traced to Pucheng. Seeing Kong Piyu's endless posture, they will not appease as usual." He couldn't sleep all night for this matter. He felt his beard and said, "I'm also anxious. Is it anxious to be useful?" He narrowed the **** who was leading the way, and whispered to Helian who, "Chu Jun is sick, but it's okay, what can I do? What is loyalty to Fu Man?" Helian, who walked fast, sweating slightly. These stubborn people don't recognize the word loyalty. What is the poison of chase? I don't believe his suit. It must be he did something in it and didn't dare to offend the cabinet. Now don't he go to Chu Jun to serve? They are very cheap. Han Yang looked at the place to come. When the **** stepped down, he took the walnut back to his arms, bowed his head slightly to the guard, and said to Helian who, "After you sit down, go to the house and say, 'There are many eyes, this is not a place for discussion.'" Helian, who was so anxious that he had no choice but to respond, and followed Han Yang's **** into the temple. The author has something to say. I thank you for reading 2K Novel Reading Network. The Han Xiang set up a special table, and Han Qi looked at Qi Zhuyin on his left when he was seated. He squinted his sleeves and said, "When will the commander be ready to return to Chidong?" Qingming rained suddenly. The road is not easy to go. The Han Xiang set up a special table, and Han Qi looked at Qi Zhuyin on his left when he was seated. He squinted his sleeves and said, "When will the commander be ready to return to Chidong?" Qingming rained suddenly. The road is not easy to go. The **** next to Qi Zhuyin is pouring wine. The glass in the palace is delicate and elegant, and the amber-colored wine is beautiful. Qi Zhuyin turned the wine glass, and looked at it carefully. Bian County was in a hurry, and it was time to leave, but the rain in Boju kept on, and I was worried. "Isn't it?" Han Yang sneered. How could the cabinet let Qi Zhuyin go? The lives of these people were tied to Chidong's garrison, and they hoped that Qi Zhuyin would stay with them during the period when they stayed at the capital. Han Bai said to Qi Zhuyin at a distance, "Go out along the Fengshan campus and go straight south to the Hezhou Road. This is a newly repaired road that runs along the Kaling River. The commander returned to talk with the Ministry of Defense. It's faster to go from here. The battle of the Green Mouse Department is over, and there are other departments. The Chidong 5 County Defense Forces are waiting for the command of the commander, and I am anxious to hear it. Although Han Yang is narrow-minded, he is very knowledgeable. He was able to sit with a couple of Center Yu at a dinner table, and there were real things in his stomach. He went to the field more often and was familiar with the road. Qi Zhuyin couldn't hide him from it. Wait for a moment, Qi Zhuyin put the wine glass down. Everything is impossible. Between the two talking, watching Xiao Hu Yifei arrived. Fei Shi and Pan Yang are best friends. These days, he was seriously ill because of Pan Yu's death. He didn't play anymore, and it was not easy to see him once. Qi Zhuyin said, little Huye went to the 8 camps. Pan Chengji's death, he was stimulated, and suddenly he was cheered up to find an errand. Han Yang drank some wine. Where is there any vacancy in the North Korean Central? As long as the 8 major camps can tolerate it, I will transfer him to Spring Camp Went. The Chungquan camp is equipped with fire salamanders. Qi Zhuyin thinks of the fire salamanders of the king of Fanju Wing, and he thinks of the scorpions of the capital. With a long sigh, she finally faced Han Yang squarely and said, Commander. Han Yang leaned over and made a listen. Qi Zhuyin looked dignified and said, hungry. Han Yang laughed immediately and said, the commander wasn't in Sudu in the past, and I didn't know I had to slap my stomach before the banquet. He lowered his voice and said, the cold banquets are all cold foods, or the mid-autumn banquets are more delicious. Good wine and crabs, sitting in the imperial garden to enjoy the moon and spend beautiful flowers. The two talked happily about each other. It wasn't until the **** outside the temple declared the Empress Yujia clearly, that they got up, back to the younger ones, kneeled down, and greeted them in unison. The Queen Mother wore a crown of 12 dragons and phoenixes with gold-laden orb, and earrings adorned with East beads. She was dressed gracefully and luxuriously, and she did not see any signs of fatigue. After sitting dignifiedly, she only said get up and stopped speaking. The court officials saluted again. After the ceremony stopped, Chu Jun Li Genting stepped into the hall. Qi Zhuyin had a moderate amount of alcohol. During the dinner, he chatted with Han Yi a bit, and several toasts were rejected by Han Yi. Han Yun did not bring a knife, and was cautious in his heart. He kept an eye on the entrance of the hall, where there were guards deployed by him. Kong Yang led the Empress Dowager Chao and Chu Jun toast in order, and the atmosphere was exuberant, and Fuman directed the eunuchs to serve. The officials of the Hall of Lin Institute have ridiculous eloquence. Several jokes made the officials lean back and forth, and even the Queen Mother eased her look. Li Genting got up in time, respecting the Queen Mother. The Queen Mother looked at her lovingly, and said, good boy, like the ancestor Guang Chenggong. After that, Jiangshan will take care of you, and the family will be relieved. Li Genting is now this age, how can there be after? Li Genting stood and drank the drink, his cheeks faintly red, and he looked at him. She told her mother-in-law, Su Zixiao, the emperor's granddaughter is stupid, and he knows nothing about politics. Li Genting has not participated in politics. Prior to the Danchengshan tax case, she heard all the official articles reported by the cabinet in Mingli Hall. Many political affairs were not fully understood, but a few professors from Kongyi personally gave her an analysis and interpretation during the lecture. It's just a scene. The Queen Mother drank with Li Genting. Before Chu Jun's ascension, all government affairs should be ruled by the cabinet minister auxiliary minister Kong Ying. The right of emperor's emperor had only symbolic approval of the right to redemption. The word urgent. Li Genting bowed down and paid homage to Kong Yang after the wine was full. The teacher and student saluted each other. She went back in turn and finally respected Han Yang. At this moment, Shengla was ringing in the hall, and the hanging at the door was put down, covering the hall door in the shadow. Han Zun reciprocated. After he drank, listening to Li Genting said, the commander is the emperor's left arm and right arm, and he is also the governor of the capital. He is careful and works hard, which makes me admire him very much. In her words, the blessing behind him filled the wine again, and Han Yang quickly said, "His Highness has broken the old minister." Li Jianting smiled. She was not exhausted between her eyebrows. She smiled unexpectedly and tenderly, jokingly. "The teacher is Cabinet Assistant Yuan, and the commander is the elder Jin Yiwei. How can I be good?" When Han Jian heard that Li Jianting put him and Kong Yang together, his words were flattering. He unexpectedly thought that Chu Jun was frightened by the last thing, and he wanted to please both ends and be a peacemaker. Han Zun served the cup with both hands, facing Li Jianting, and said, "I am a martial artist, how dare you compare with Yuan Fu? Your Highness, please." Li Jianting looked at Han Yang, covered his sleeves and drank the wine in his cup, and Fu Man filled it again. The wine bottle she took was different from the wine glass, and the depth of the bucket was large. Han Yu had already sweated a lot during the 2 games and did not want to drink it again. His Royal Highness, Han Yang's alcohol is okay, but after thinking about it, the people outside of his palace are all his own, and he could not help but relax his vigilance, and said to Li Jianting, "His Royal Highness is still young, and the government affairs obey the decision of the cabinet." Military affairs. This year, the cabinet will reduce the military expenses of the capital. Your Highness, this is not the case. We are both responsible for patrolling. Now we don't even have a decent school ground. We still have to reduce military costs. This. When Kong Yang stood behind Li Jianting, he frowned and stopped. The banquet doesn't talk about government affairs. You and your Highness complain about these things. Han Han ate the wine, held the bottle in his palm, smiled at Kong Jipi, and said, "Permanently, you have drafted the ticket and asked me to submit. I can only state my difficulties if I meet with His Royal Highness." These days the Duke Royuan pushed Helian Hu tightly. He was an honest man, and he called Center Shuani scolded. He stopped, "His Royal Highness, His Royal Highness. Center Yu stood up a few weeks ago and first worshipped the Queen Mother and Li Jianting before saying to Han Yang, the chief of the Court of Impeachment was impeached, commonly known as the word official, and all the matters presented were harmed by the court. It is close to the northeast grain road and runs through the waterway of Yuncheng. If there is a tax problem, we have to say. The court case has not yet been opened for trial, and the cabinet has not been more guilty than Helena. How can I say that I forced him? Tight. I think he is pushing the people of Gaocheng tight." The music in the temple stopped gradually, and the courtiers present were silent. Han Yang felt that he couldn't hang on his face, he just didn't like the courtiers of Han men. Before, he just didn't boil his head, but now he was holding his hands in his hands, and Center Yu dared to hit him so openly, making him furious. Han Yanqiang pressed and laughed, "In search of benefits, you and I are old acquaintances. I understand you. Since Chicheng has not yet opened a conference review, the ticket has not been read, and what has been played has yet to be verified. You cannot draw such conclusions without authorization. He Lianhou had no soldiers and no power, and the account also let Pan Jiutou pass to the household. Now he was anxious like an ant on a hot pot, and he only dared to speak secretly when he had hatred in his heart. At this moment, it seems that they are about to quarrel. They can't eat any food, put their chopsticks on their feet, and stand up to talk. Don't talk about government affairs at the banquet, don't talk about government affairs." Han Zheng handed the empty bottle to the eunuch, saluted Li Jianting again, and said, "Sweeping His Highness." Li Jianting also handed the empty bottle to Fuman and said, "Why do commanders take their minds? But. Han Yang raised his head suspiciously. A gust of wind blew from the door of the palace, and the hangings slowly fluttered. Li Jianting seemed to be in a mess. She raised her hand to support the cricket, and touched her fingertips with the golden cricket. He said clearly to Han Ji, "Jin Zun is the same as Yu Yin, and the white blade is not forgiving." Hanging to the ground, the door closed suddenly. Han Yang's eyes widened, he immediately backed off, knocked over a few in panic, and the wine bottle utensils shattered in time. He said, "His Royal Highness." Qi Zhuyin didn't get up and hit her with a punch. The porcelain dishes and chopsticks trembled immediately. She picked up the gold chopsticks and slanted them to the side of Han's neck. Han Yang waved his sleeves to block and only heard the bang collision. He even wore soft armor in his official robe and arm restraints between his arms. Han Zheng kicked his younger foot and smashed into Li Jianting with a bang, and made a furious thunder. "Daughter of the door, how dare you kill me?" Fu Man watched Han Yang's power, and he heard the footsteps coming from outside the temple. He felt timid and took a few steps back with the tray. Kong Yang, who was on the side, rushed forward, blocking Li Jianting, and the forehead was smashed by the young couple. He pushed Li Jianting backwards with all his strength, shouting at the bleeding, shouting in the shock, "Don't listen to his nonsense. This thief will not get rid of the country, there will be no peace. Kill him, kill him." The door of the hall was loud, and the guards outside heard the noise and came to hit the door. Feng Quan took a few eunuchs and pressed the door latch. The courtiers in the hall were all horrified. Helion, who was not stable, and he continued to step back, muttering, "What is this?" Li Jianting did not stand firm in the retreat and fell to the ground. Her heart pounded, holding on to Jinyun, watching Feng Quan be shaken by the door, and yelled, "Clog the door." Han Yi set up soldiers with armor to surround the palace. "The wolf's ambition is not hidden, and I will not kill him tonight. Kings are dead. Center, you didn't pay any attention to his feet in the confusion. He was tripped by a wine vessel." Xue Xiuzhua supported him. He waved in the hall and said eagerly, "As long as Han Yang is dead, the rebels will have no head. Don't be afraid." Yin Luo set an example and took the lead in front of the door, and stood up against the door with his nephew. Han Zheng and Qi Zhuyin fought several times, winning in kung fu refinement, and wearing armor, forcing Qi Zhuyin to fall to the ground. The 5 beads in his hair suddenly collapsed. She didn't dare to stay, turned over violently, and left the place. She said that from time to time, Han Yang followed her foot and stepped on her proper position. "Qi Zhuyin." Han Yang sighed severely. "You can't bear you really don't know how high you are. You want to win me and call you lousy." Qi Zhuyin didn't bring Lu Ju, and he usually attacked on the battlefield. When he met Han Ji, a master of martial arts, he would suffer. She led Han Kuan to take a few steps back, and she had already reached the side of Hua Xiangyi. Seeing that she was about to approach the Queen Mother, suddenly she held up the wine glass that Hua Xiangyi hadn't drank her head, and drank the porcelain cup. Broken, bent to eat, sandwiched the broken porcelain with 2 middle fingers, wiped his mouth. "Don't you know?" Qi Zhuyin told the truth, "I have a stroke." Han Zun struck Qi Zhuyin's facade with a punch. Qi Zhuyin sideways dodged, raised his hand without porcelain, and held Han Shen's arm, turning back hard. Han Yang's pattern remained motionless. Qi Zhuyin was discouraged, and instead of letting go, he kicked his side to Han Yang's flank. Han Yun knew that she usually mentioned ghost-headed knives, but didn't expect her to introduce a woman. The force of the capture was so great that she couldn't let go, she just hit her foot. He fiercely paused, screamed, and banged bang bang several times, leaning his elbow to shake Qi Zhuin's hand away. The two of them fought fiercely, smashing the debris under their feet between advance and retreat. The courtiers who blocked the door were all civil servants, and all the courage to fight with the outside guards was based on courage. The door of the temple door was getting bigger and bigger. Feng Quan could already see the face of the guard who was outside. He suddenly snapped at the guard and screamed, "Bitch hides a hybrid," followed by "Wang Ba eggs also want to be fragrant and spicy, and make you ****** daydream. Then top our house and tear your skin." He looked handsome, followed Chu Jun into the palace as if to change his spleen, did not dare to be mad, usually see everyone with a lower eyebrow and pleasing to the eye, but unexpectedly today, he was shunned out and scolded with sharp words. The courtiers also scolded people, but they all held their pens and thoughtfully scolded the rhythm, cursed the beauty, cursed the demeanor, and immediately heard a string of sounds like Feng Quan Lianzhu cannon, and the morale suddenly increased. Han Yang inside did not want to entangle, twisted Qi Zhuin's fist, and took off Qi Zhuin's right arm. Qi Zhuyin flipped smoothly, hit her on the cheek when she landed, and this time she bumped against a small table on one side. She licked the blood of her teeth when she supported her arms. This old dog is worthy of being a master under Ji Lei's hands. He keeps hiding, and meets Qi Zhuyin to take advantage. It is so easy to replace Xiao Qi'er with a strong arm who can also beat Ji Jiachuan. Han Yang bullied himself, trying to take Qi Zhuyin out of the waist. Qi Zhuyin blocked his arms, hugged his feet with his backhand, and lifted him abruptly, toppling him to the ground. Kong Yang rushed out with a jug, thrown aside before smashing, and hugged Han Yang's arm. Han Yang was pressed by Kong Yang's left arm, and he couldn't make it for a while. He had to turn over. Xue Xiuzhua turned over his younger, held his 2 feet, and knelt down to hold Han Yang's right arm. With her arms stretched, Han Yang changed his face and hissed out, "You little people." He shook himself hard, but Qi Zhuyin struck up, kicked on the ground, and shattered the broken porcelain between his fingers to Han's neck. Han Yang desperately lifted his body, hardly connected it by his chest, rubbing the bleeding line between his neck. He was about to open his mouth, and then suddenly a person rushed behind him, holding his half-body. Fu Man gasped and said, "Master is doing it." At first glance, it was Han who said in a frightened and furious voice, "The thief is meaningless and should have killed you already." There is a vague tendency to stand up. Who knew he hadn't done it yet, he was thrown back by Qi Zhuin's punch, and this caused Han Xi's nosebleed to flow out, and he screamed with hate, "You support Li Jianting to the throne, you are the rebel. She is just a cricket." Door listening only to the sound of Han Yun's left eye was very painful. He wailed so painfully in his neck, and saw the golden butterfly falling on Jin's trembled on his cheek in the blur of blood. Han Yang shivered with pain and was at the end of his crossbow, saying, "You, how dare you?" Li Jianting shook her hand to pull out the golden robe, and the blood robe was dirty with blood. She saw that Han Yun had not died yet, gritted her teeth, closed her eyes and looked at the disorder of Han Yun's neck. Han Yang interrupted, "Well, you." His right eye was severely pecked during heavy rain in Lijiu, and his left eye was blinded by Li Jianting. At this moment, there is no person, his face is blurred, and his lips move. "Think of me for a while for." Fu Man was also pressed by Han Ying, and he screamed in frightened by the blood. Kong Yang released his hand with a little heart and confirmed that Han Yang was dead. Then he let out his breath and fell to the ground. Han Yang fell to the ground, crooked his neck, and stopped moving. Xue Xiuzhua was also breathing. He stared at Li Jianting, his eyes mixed with incredible. Li Jianting's Jin Yang was covered with blood, and fell to the ground, making a clear sound. Her hands were full of blood, and she was frightened by Han's appearance. She took a half-step back, and her throat was gasping heavily. Livestock. Li Jianting's fingers were shaking so badly that she wiped her face with ridicule in the dead silence, as if wiping away her tears, but leaving only her red fingerprints. "I am not a livestock." Facing Xue Xiuzhua's eyes, Li Jianting slowly tightened his fist. She flushed her eyes, showing a complex expression in this sudden change, both like crying and laughing. "I'm not." Li Jianting squeezed her voice from her teeth. She turned abruptly and raised her right hand towards the door of the temple, as if holding the authority that was once out of reach, saying, "Chu Jun is here, who be a chaotic thief." The queen held her hand. Although she was still in the high position, she seemed to have returned to the day she entered the palace. That day, she stood in front of the towering temple, looking up at Emperor Guangcheng, who was in her prime. Emperor Guangcheng once stood at the peak of 9, raised her right hand and said to her, "Heaven is here." King Li's. The author has something to say. "I moved in the past 2 days, and sent my packed luggage yesterday. I didn't come back at around 17:30, and I asked for leave before I could catch up. The frequency of this leave is the highest in the book I have written. I feel embarrassed every time, so I will make 2 or 3 changes every other day. The final volume feels bad, and the update is often late. The number of words for the next few days on the next few days is not enough. I don't know how to apologize. It's useless to add more. Chase harder, thanks to 2K Novel Reading Network." The frightening cold food feast came to an end, and Xue Xiuzhua took off Han Yang's waist tag. The guard lost his banner and was afraid of the orthodox majesty. He did not dare to rush into it again. He was repelled by the influence of Li Jianting's Chu Jun is here. The frightening cold food feast came to an end, and Xue Xiuzhua took off Han Yang's waist tag. The guard lost his banner and was afraid of the orthodox majesty. He did not dare to rush into it again. He was repelled by the influence of Li Jianting's Chu Jun is here. The 8 major camp generals on standby outside the palace all stayed in Hanfu. The governor hasn't returned yet, Or don't let that Kompa Ran leave. Han's son leaned on the couch, slamming his cigarettes hard, and sniffing softly, saying, although Kongji is not good with the governor, but we have soldiers in hand, and the 20,000 army can surround the palace when they hear the movement. Who are they? Dare to act lightly? They are all scholars who have nothing to do with chickens. Can they really pin their hopes on Qi Zhuyin? Qi Zhuyin can't run away. Hua Shasan listened to the aria on the stage, shook his head and followed the hum, and the folding fan beat the palm rhythmically. He said, the governor is a hero of the world. Which of the flower racks in the palace are his opponents? This flower 13 was the sister-in-law of the Hua Cheng flower family. In the early years, he intervened in the affairs of the embargo and was ruled by Xiao Qie. He was afraid of the overlord Xiao Xian, and fled home. He spent no time in Fucheng and did not dare to enter the capital until Xiao Qie left Fudu. Come on, said Hua Shizhong, raising a folding fan, pointing to the top, proudly, my aunt is here, who dares to move the governor? Han's son exhaled smoke and smiled at him, all of them were 250 bales, and no one was too disgusted. Fei Shi will be here in a few days, Han said to the waitress to stop smoking tobacco. Some of us will give him the whole table, welcome and welcome well. Pan Chengji is dead, he is embarrassed. Hua 13 folded up the folding fan, and turned to his side, saying, say me, this Pan Chengji died well. If he didn't die, what would he do if he was exiled to Huaizhou? Sooner or later, it would be dead in our hands, and it would be broken. It's not easy to deal with Fei Shi. Pan Yang handed in the books of the 8 cities. They did not expect that Han Yang would go back. The 8th Battalion has been a grandfather in Boju from the beginning of Yongyi years. Only the band army led by Xiao Qie during Xianda years threatened the status of their capital. But the band army left, they became the capitals of the capitals and acted wildly. There was no longer a cautious statement. Several people drank and made fun, and it was getting late in the chat. Hua 13 was a little drunk, leaned against the back of his chair, raised his leg, and shouted that the opera actor was to give him a lame leg, and while Joshing squeezed his face, he teased, how old is the young lady? Look at the eyes. Han's son behind him quickly stretched out his neck, showing off. Do you know who she is? Hung Xian. He is famous, and you can't find it anywhere you go out of this door. They teased the celebrity, one by one, and they were stubborn. The outside sister-in-law knocked a few times, and the maid in the house lit the palace lantern under the eaves. Liju was quiet. Qi Wei led the defender to kill Lieutenant General of the city, sneaking into Liju. He held his time, and after 3 hours of ugliness, he raised his hand to signal to his subordinates to surround Hanfu. Hua Shi was drowsy and suddenly felt urgency. He got up to go to the toilet, and when he walked through the corridor, he saw that there was a little light in front of him, and he fixed his eyes on the fire. Hua Shi was so frightened that she ran back with her pants on, and chased the maid and asked, is it burned? Why is there no one to extinguish the fire? Quickly, let the army who is waiting in the other hospital to pick up water to fight the fire. This house is Han Yang's. If Han Yang returns tomorrow morning and sees the house burned, they will not be able to eat and go. After spending 13 glances, several of Han's sons heard the sound, and stood under the eaves to look at it, but saw the fire grow bigger. What's the matter? Han said nervously. Why isn't it gone? The nursing home came to the door and replied, this fire is so strange. Some time ago, someone should have let it go on purpose. Liuye came to the door to see. All the army listened to you. Mr. Han did not dare to be lazy in this matter. He dragged a few people around and greeted him for $13. Everyone went hurriedly towards the door. Before he came to the door, he heard the people in front shouting, kill in. 13 flowers changed color, and said, kills come in? Who killed them? The servants around were all messed up. I don't know who replied, you can't see clearly, the black one. When you see the army at the door, you will kill them. Push them in. Han's son stunned his cigarette, dragged his robe for a few steps, and then shrank back, yelling, quickly pass the transfer order and bring all the army on campus to rescue. But he does not have Han's waist card, he can't adjust the capital of the school. The killing sound of the front yard came in, and the army who was accompanying at the door couldn't stop it. Seeing that the situation was not good for Hua Shi, How could he care about others and follow the crowded servants running backwards? Han's son couldn't move even the sword, and ran away when he saw it. Chi Wei broke into the door and sought someone by fire. Regardless of the chaos in the courtyard, he hacked when he met the army. Bedaing has been in judo for a long time. Except for the knife that was used to encircle Xiao Chia last time, he has never encountered such a stubble. Several generals flinched and retreated, and the soldiers underneath went in circles, letting the garrison be defeated. The garrison did not let the fire burn for too long. The 8 major battalions were scattered all over the place, and there was no channel for transmitting messages to each other. The fire was too strong and it would definitely cause doubt. By the time the fire in Hanfu was put out, the courtyard had fallen. Chi Wei didn't let Hua 13 wait for the group to pay the group together. Only Han's son drilled a dog hole to escape. The next day the sky shimmered. The courtiers defended Li Jianting and moved to Mingli Tang, and then issued a series of edicts. He first dismissed the title of Han and then reprimanded the 8 major counts of Han. He was copied on the grounds of collusion with the party and intent to rebel full door. Han's hometown, Wucheng, is complicated, and heard the wind made birds and beasts scattered, and ran away with softness. In just a few days, the situation in Boju changed drastically. Before the room had time to respond, the ninefold throne took the new master. The Queen Mother was lying sick on the couch, while Li Jianting was busy. She had to serve her Queen Mother as her grandmother and Queen Mother. Senator Yushang wrote that Chu Juanda's filial piety was merged, and the courts immediately praised him. The Queen Mother is physically weak, and Chu Jun's call for ascension is rising. ******, the storm is over. Yarrow Wenyu sprinkled bait on the koi in the pond. It's time for the marshal to return to the county. Xian returned to the battlefield. When the commander comes back, he should go to Bianjuan. Shun Zechuan faced Nico and looked at the jade in his palm. Han Yu died lightly. The news has just arrived. Yarrow Wenyu had bait left between his fingers. He said, the Queen Mother is incapable of returning to the sky and cannot withstand the death of the family. When Chu Jun ascends to the throne, he will be captained as a baron. Shun Zechuan held Yu Pei and laughed. Yarrow Wenyu said, the prince wants Ji Qingqing to return to Liju, but he is not allowed to move, so it must be reserved for great use. Ji Qingqing is not in a hurry. This move will not be effective until Chu Jun ascends the throne. Shun Zechuan looked at Yarrow Wenyu. I look forward to her ascending the throne. The tender willow branches by the pond, the tiger slave fluttered and rushed to the side of Yarrow when ***, covered with dust. Yarrow Wenyu touched it with his hand and said, Fu Jun looks far away. Shui Yanqing wanted a monarch, and God really gave it to him. Shun Zechuan smiled. However, a powerful monarch is at the mercy of others. Dread it, Yarrow Wenyu said softly. That's right. Shun Zechuan watched as the crowd of koi carps came together, all floating on the water as if lame. Shui Yanqing is a minister. Shui Xiuzhua has played a major role in supporting Chu Jun and inspecting Tiangong. He is not a greed, robber, or enclosure, but he is a power minister. The wise emperor of this world is not afraid of power ministers, but he must be afraid of powerless ministers. If Shui Yanqing is willing to work hard here, he should give Chu Jun a chance to get his handle, said Shun Zechuan. Even if nothing happens, let Chu Jun feel at ease. Without a handle, it means that it is difficult to handle, and there is no way to check and balance. Yarrow Wenyu groaned. Shui Xiuzhua has such a spleen that he will not leave Chu Jun with his own handle. Shun Zechuan said meaningfully, then he will be in danger. Sometimes the line between loyalty and treacherous is not clear. The decision is in the hands of Li Jianting. Shun Zechuan figured out what happened to the cold meal in Ji Qingqing's recount. It turns out that Chu Jun was not the vase that Shui Xiuzhua moved over. She took root like a thorn on the throne, and relied on the perseverance far beyond others. Grows quickly. Since Han Yang is dead, it is useless to keep Han Jin. Shun Zechuan seemed to remember the man, and told Fei Sheng behind him, open Han Jin's door, let him go, and send him back to Wucheng. Fei Sheng thought that Shun Zechuan would keep Han Jin, but he did not expect that Shun Zechuan would throw Han Jin off like this. He felt sorry, but did not dare to talk. Daeju is broken and it's unknown whether Tianzi can command the heroes. Yarrow Wenyu turned the four-wheeled vehicle. Chu Jun will not fight with Xue Xiuzhua at this moment. What matters right now is Bian County. In May, the handsome commander wants to capture the territory of the mouse department. Some bear departments did not dare to watch the fire from the other side, but they were afraid that it would be a fierce battle again. Chidong has enough food, and Qi Zhuyin is not afraid. Shun Zichuan said, however, Zhongbua does not support useless people. Hai Rigu has rested for almost half a year and should let him go out. Yarrow Wenyu comprehended it and said, does the prince want to use Hai Rigu to talk to the bear department? I heard that Amur is only the 6 chiefs, and there is a bear department that has not yet surrendered. Shun Zichuan also looked at the water. The land of the Green Mouse department belongs to Amur, and their food was given to Hassan on the northern battlefield. Now there is a bear department. Being forced to fight is also for food, and we are not short of food. Amur differentiated Daeju with scorpions. Now Shun Zichuan also holds a batch of scorpions. It is a waste to stay in his hand. He wants Hai Rigu to play a role. The Green Mouse department, the Bear department, Jedale, and the North Face department. Shun Zichuan looked back. Connecting these places is the New Year gift I want to give to Amur. 4 things that Amul stole from Zhongbua, Shun Zichuan would not return, but he could make Amul compensation in another way. From the site of the Green Mouse department to the site of the Huiyang department, this line is right at the Chashi River. Duanzhou doesn't have a thick enough defense wall. Shun Zichuan's fingertips swayed lightly. It happens that there is not a bear. The author has something to say. It's late. Today's plane is at 9 o'clock, and I can only go to the place at about 18 o'clock in the evening. I want to save a copy of today's draft overnight, but without success, I will cut off on the 5th for a day. The rain in Boju stopped, and Qi Zhuyin should return. She received Hua Xiangyi at the gate of the palace, and the carriage was next to her, but she took the dove and said to Hua Xiangyi, let's go together. The rain in Boju stopped, and Qi Zhuyin should return. She received Hua Xiangyi at the gate of the palace, and the carriage was next to her, but she took the dove and said to Hua Xiangyi, let's go together. Hua Xiangyi saw that Qi Zhuin's broken 5-beaded puppet still fell on the gold thread and hung in her hair, as it should have been, and couldn't see the handsome wolf howling if you could ignore the blue face. Qi Wei raised his hand and motioned for the carriage to follow him. When Qi Zhuyin and Hua Xiangyi walked away, he followed closely. At this moment, there was warm wind in the market, the crowd was bustling, and the smell of sweat and fried cooked food was mixed in the air. The spring flowers blooming in the distance seemed to be greasy, which made Qi Zhuyin feel stuffy. Do you eat? Qi Zhuyin passed by the sugarman's stall and asked Hua Xiangyi. Next to this stall is the road, people are coming and going, and the dust is flying. Hua Xiangyi is the jewel of the flower family, and rarely goes out before reaching the capital, staying in the deep courtyard for pampering. She looked at Qi Zhuyin. Qi Zhuyin found out the remaining pieces of copper coins from her sleeve and flicked towards her, and said with satisfaction in the hum sound, I have money. This street is not bright enough, but Qi Zhuyin smiled at Qingzi's lips, and the lanterns behind them turned on in sequence. She was like a 10-year-old girl who ran away from home to play without thinking about anything, so she remembered this sugar. Hua Xiangyi held the parcel, raised her finger, pointed to one of them, and said, I want this. She was shy for this sentence, and her subtle emotions were hidden between her eyebrows, something she had never done, and something she would never do before. Qi Zhuyin tossed the copper money to the hawker, then gave the sugar man Hua Xiangyi. She didn't care that she had no money, anyway, she never had money, and the money could not be kept in her hands. Hua Xiangyi carefully pinched the sugar man, and she looked at the light and looked calmly. She once saw the sugarman in the gap passing by the car curtain across her servant. There is sugar in the palace, and the queen mother used to ask her to prepare for her. Qi Zhuyin rubbed the bruises on her face with her fingertips. She looked at herself reflected in the water tank side by side through several ghost images. Qi Zhuyin is noble, but Hua Xiangyi always doesn't feel like, she is open-minded like a cloud tourist. Hua Xiangyi stayed at Chidong for half a year and never saw Qi Zhuin's anger, as if there was nothing worthy of Qi Zhuin's anger. Does the commander often come here? Hua Xiangyi asked. People who dare to put tiger skin money are here. I have all the money here to borrow money. Qi Zhuyin said, removing the beads from her hair, and said with a pity, the 5 beads it was awarded by the court. I have never dared to sell it. I knew it would be broken in the palace. I would rather sell it. Hua Xiangyi said, Zhuangzi at home. Qi Zhuyin didn't wait for Hua Xiangyi to finish, and said, I just want to tell you today that you will take care of the Zhuangzi shop in the future. You will decide whether you rent or sell it. Facing Hua Xiangyi, we talk frankly. Qi Zhuyin did not move the place of conversation to the tea house. She loves the market. Standing here is her attitude. She is not afraid to face anyone's eyes. Thank you for the 8-city granary. Qi Zhuyin saluted slightly, her long hair followed her back, and she straightened up again. Otherwise this time it is dangerous. Hua Xiangyi turned sideways and said, the work is done. Qi Zhuyin looked at her and said, Pan, you didn't tell me, I just thank you. Hua Xiangyi was seen by Qi Zhuyin as a sugar man. But I also bluntly, did you tell me what happened to the granary in the 8th city? Did you want me to do it for you? Qi Zhuyin said it directly, and he didn't remember it. This Miss Huasan is also very strange. Qi Zhuyin turned around and did not want to understand why Hua Xiangyi wanted to disclose the matter of the granary to herself. If she hadn't mentioned it in the palace, this game would still be impossible. Hua Xiangyi hugged her white neck and looked at the sugar man in the voice. She said, the boss doesn't need to do anything for me, the boss just hit the sand. Qi Zhuyin stared at Hua Xiangyi, suddenly holding her knees, and tilted her head to look at Hua Xiangyi's expression, wondering, that's it? Hua Xiangyi was taken aback by Qi Zhuyin. This posture was the same as Qi Zhuin's picking up the hijab. He rushed directly to his eyes without giving Hua Xiangyi a chance to prepare. You helped Yarrow Wenyu escape in Boju. Qi Zhuyin seemed to be awake, and felt that Hua Xiangyi was a little smelly, with the flower fragrance she expected. As a result, she was so diligent that when she returned, she found that Hua Xiangyi was still pinching the sugar man was calmly waiting for her to continue. Tell me about the granary again. Qi Zhuyin concealed the talented wondering, is it because of marrying my father? Hua Xiangyi said, the person who saved Yuan Zhuo inherited it. Qi Zhuyin shook his head and said firmly, it's you. Hua Xiangyi has given credit to others for several times, and she seems to be unable to admit that the queen mother who blocked her boundary is the empress. The afterglow of the street was swallowed up, and the lanterns seemed to fall like stars. The fried taste was a little bit stale, and the market was still sultry, and Huari was out of place here. As early as in Xianda, my aunt would ask me questions from time to time, the most frequently during spring plowing every year. Hua Xiangyi hangs down the sugar man, as if playing with the shadow of the past. She said, it is actually the account of Barching. The more I calculated, the clearer I was. In Xiandenian, I persuaded my aunt to let Jiang/Qingshan pass, but they thought that Jiang/Qingshan coordinated the 13 cities. In that year, Bo was so hungry in the wild. Liu was ruined by the food released by the Barching city and killed too many people, she said, raising her head gently. It was more dead than when Biancha slaughtered the city. Hua Xiangyi lives in the deep palace. She wears beautiful embroidery, food treasures, and sleeping satin, while the other end of the Zhu wall is covered with lotus roots, rice dumplings, and pillows. She followed the queen standing on the west floor, and the illusion of prosperity and blindness blinded her eyes, but she soon realized that these people did not want to stop. Hai Liangyi was killed in Mingletang, but the queen mother never thought about changing. Hua Xiangyi said, I want to stop my aunt. People are the rivers that carry boats. This is the foundation. The queen mother still wants to suppress the rumors by relying on bidding, which is against the sky. The rise and fall of rivers and mountains is not tied to the king at all. The world just needs an emperor heart who understands the pity of the world's hardships. I am trapped in a boudoir, and my ability is limited. Whether facing Yuan Zhuo or inheriting it, what I can do is trivial, Hua Xiangyi said here, and slowly returned a gift to Qi Zhuyin. If it is possible to repel 12 Biancha, that is meritorious. Therefore, I want the commander to walk out of Lijiu alive. After receiving this gift, Qi Zhuyin seemed to recognize who Hua Xiangyi was. You're a good woman. Qi Zhuyin paused for a while. I should report on merit. The author has something to say. I have been working hard for a few days, and I will resume at 19 o'clock tomorrow. A 2K Novel Reading Network. In the hot summer of May, the gentlemen couldn't bear the heat, and they all ate tea and cigarettes in Kai Shin Ting, shaking the folding fan fiercely. Yu Xiao drank another herbal tea, which was not very comfortable at the moment. She was thinking about going to the hut, but she saw Fei Sheng leading Hai Rigu to the courtyard. In the hot summer of May, the gentlemen couldn't bear the heat, and they all ate tea and cigarettes in Kai Shin Ting, shaking the folding fan fiercely. Yu Xiao drank another herbal tea, which was not very comfortable at the moment. She was thinking about going to the hut, but she saw Fei Sheng leading Hai Rigu to the courtyard. Eri is going to cross the border in 2 days. Yu Xiao again wiped the sweat from her neck with a pupper. Hai Rigu will go with him. He's a scorpion, Kong Ling said, not eating cold food, sitting on the edge of the water curtain and enjoying himself. I can talk to the bear department. This is the meaning of the prince. Yu Xiao can no longer refute. He nodded, and sat beside Yarrow Wenyu, saying, I heard that people with a bear department are born strong, riding high horses, different from other tribes in the desert. Jiao Zhongxiong hasn't seen a bear department. He stopped his pen, turned his head in the ink-dipped space, and waited for Yu Wenyu with Yu Xiao again. Yarrow Wenyu closed the book on his knees and said, the bear tribe is a large tribe in the southwestern part of the desert. Before Amor did not rise, the strongest tribe in the desert was the fierce tribe, followed by the bear tribe. Before the bear tribe stationed east of Suoxiangwan, they have their own horses, and they don't need pony horses with hooks. There are bear horses, also called bear horses, which are taller than the northern battle horses. Jiao Zhongxiong originally thought that Yu Xiao was talking about rumors. He was shocked and said, I heard rumors of the bear ministry when I was a student. At that time, the lock was locked by Feng's Shuiguan silver gun Fengisheng. If there was a bear ministry, it would be given by General Feng. Hit East. Yongyi's 4 generals are famous. Hongyang Iron Wing Xiaofengshu, Kang County Tingu Qi Shiyu, Bian County Feishu Lu Pingyang, and Shuiguan silver gun Fengisheng are the men most talked about in Da Zhaolang's early years. Fengisheng and Xiaofengshu are a way of life. He was born in Weiwei. At the age of 14, he pointed at the snowbound peak of the sky, and made an oath to be the iron wall of the copper wall of Da Zhu. When he was 40, he buried himself under the snow peak. The remaining younger son eventually died in battle, leaving only his bones to the left son of left Chioki. Yuan Zhuobua heard the strong knowledge, and even knew that there was a bear department. In fact, Chidong's earliest war horse was mixed with the bear horse. Kong Ling said, Wolf King Xiaofengshu was a soldier in Luoxia Pass. All the horses were transferred from Chidong, and they are also such horses. Oh, Yu Xiao exclaimed again, the waves are fierce. When Amor unified the 4 snakes, the horse, the hawk, and the squirrel, he wanted to have the bears return. Kong Ling felt cold, got up and returned to the table. They had a fight, and Amor didn't discuss it. To the best. Now the other 3 people are all interested, and sit around Kong Ling. Jiao Zhongxiong said, but there are 4 parts, which will make the elite who suffers from the North Rail riding. The place is different. The bear department was still wandering around Suoxiangwan at that time. They occupied the high ground, and the serpent department was struggling to attack, and they would be beaten in front of others. Kong Ling laughed and said vividly, I saw that Xiefeng winding endlessly, there are always bears in the meantime. They held scimitars, arm-bound leather armor, and ran down from the top. They took the serpent department as a chest, and the serpent department rolled down and fell to the ground unconscious. Yu Xiao immediately sang, it's incredible. Yarrow Wenyu did not swallow a sip of tea, nearly sipped it out, covered her mouth and nose with the palm of her hand, and even coughed a few times before she eased over. Kong Ling said with a smile, it is really terrible. Amor lost his temper and can only move the Green Mouse department to Bian County. Yarrow Wenyu wiped and said, there are also bears and heroes. When General Feng was still alive, the man who confronted him at Suoxiangwan was called the Sukba Beast. It was the Russia and Soviet Union of the bears. Jiao Zhongxiong stepped forward and said, this person I know. Yuan Zhuo, I don't know if you remember, I was in the tea house near Taishuer a lot after listening to it. According to the legend of General Feng, He and this succubus beast are just like the Wolf King and Amor. It's a hero, Kong Ling said. Without Amor, the position of the Serpent Department would be occupied by the succubus beast led by the Bear Department. He and Fengisheng are both enemies and friends. There is such a thing in the tea house in Dengju for a while, I don't know if it was fabricated, and said that when Fengisheng shot through the rainbow eagle flag that symbolized the dignity of Bianxia, the succubus beasts clapped together, and the two laughed at each other across thousands of horses. Say hello to each other first. Jiao Zhongxiong held his pen, raised his posture, and learned the storyteller. General Feng does not have armor, but stands with his hands in the snow. He hunts in a white robe, isn't he chic? The general fisted and said loudly, is Cheche's grain cart ready? Jiao Zhongxiong's posture was stagnant, and his open mouth was too late to close, and he saw that Kong Ling and others all stood up and saluted toward Shen Zichuan behind him. Ready, Kong Ling said. Fei Sheng checked this morning and will be sent out of the city by Qiao Tianya later. Shen Zichuan tapped Jiao Zhongxiong's back shoulder with a folding fan, and said, I am the bear tiger succubus beast, and I have a horse cider in my hometown. The wine is very good. I want to wait for the general to finish the fight. Jiao Zhongxiong hurriedly put the pen down and turned to salute the Fujuan. Don't be nervous, Shen Zichuan said. It's the so-called Da Jua Lang Shueguan Meng, who doesn't know how to lock the sky gun. Master used to listen to this paragraph. Hai Rigu stood at the entrance of the pavilion and said, the succubus beast has a bear and tiger, and I know him. Yu Xiao again listened with interest and asked, what happened to these two? Kong Ling didn't answer. Hai Rigu picked up the fruit on the table, took a bite, and said, the succubus beast killed Fengisheng's young son and also killed Fengisheng. He was driven away by Amor and left Suotian off. He stayed in Jedale for a while before retreating to the back of the Green Mouse Department. This is a strange person. Hai Rigu remembers the succubus beast, the legendary tiger hero. He played in Gudara and played drum dances every time he was drunk. This tall and majestic man's hair was white, he was not old yet, but seemed to be dead. I have a friend, succubus drinking in the flames. He drank my cider and killed my sons. I avenged him, and he left me. He turned the pouch upside down, empty. We are the eagles on both sides of Snow Peak, and will die in each other's hands. It's a pity that he died. Hai Rigu finished eating the fruit. He caught cold in Gudal and was too sick to get up. The snake department surrounded him, and he drank the horse in his account alone. Milk and finally took his machete to death on Gobi. Guganyas in the deer department cut off his head and dedicated it to Amor. Yu Xiao said again and stopped talking. Everyone in Kai Shinting went silent. Gaganyas leaned on the head of the succubus beast, making the deer department a friend of Amor, and he also became a friend of Hassan. A few years later, Xiao Fengshu's horseshoe broke Gurjinha's neck, and a few years later, Kong Ling didn't open his mouth. Hai Rigu went to the border county, and the governor still needs Hualingyun to go with him? Yarrow Wenyu skipped the topic and asked. Hualingyun doesn't go to Bai County. Shen Zichuan looked sideways outside Shui Curtain, who stood up and stood at Hualingyun, his flames are going north. *****. The next day Xiao Chie took an iron ride across the country, and Shen Zichuan stood on the road in front of the city gate, watching Huang Shuo tumbling. Hurricane circled down, beeping twice above Shen Zichuan's head, then flying high again, rushing to the south. Fei Sheng heard the thunder from the north rail riding, and came forward to block the yellow sand for Shen Zichuan. Shen Zichuan slightly erected the folding fan, and did not let Fei Sheng stand in front of himself. Langdao Shualai wore heavy armor, exhaled the hot breath, and led the iron ride straight from the horse road. Shen Zichuan gradually smiled. As Xiao Qie approached, he lifted his right arm, wide sleeve slid down, revealing the arm restraint inside. Xiao Qie looked ahead without Lima. He dropped his arm when he passed Shen Zichuan and heard only a crisp sound. The two arms were banged next to each other, only wiped in the blink of an eye. The wind brought up Shen Zichuan's sleeve robe, and he said, Dajie. Xiao Qie laughed. He continued to push forward in the hot sun and said, Great victory. The heat wave swept over, Feisha rushed, and the two passed their arms without turning back. The author has something to say. I thank you for reading 2K Novel Reading Network. Bianjuan faced the desert, eroded by wind and sand, and rarely seen the sky when standing on the wall. The houses in the country are low, and when you look here, you will see the yellow wild earth. Green plants are rare along the way, and several crooked neck disease trees can be seen only a few miles away. The level of the grass between the gobi is uneven, like a master in the hall who is about to be bald when he is over half a year old. Bianjuan faced the desert, eroded by wind and sand, and rarely seen the sky when standing on the wall. The houses in the country are low, and when you look here, you will see the yellow wild earth. Green plants are rare along the way, and several crooked neck disease trees can be seen only a few miles away. The level of the grass between the gobi is uneven, like a master in the hall who is about to be bald when he is over half a year old. Xiao Qie's helmet was covered with layers of ash. He took off his helmet, turned his back to the setting sun, and looked at the border town walls floating in the sand waves ahead. It's really poor here. Hai Rigu jumped off the horse and the accessories around his neck cracked. He unscrewed the water bladder, poured his head up to pour water on his face, and closed his eyes and said, "The scorpion is not here at all. Bian County has no fields, and the land under his feet is too barren. In the hot June, the signs of cracking have been exposed." Xiao Qie moved his army boots and looked at the worm crawling between the gaps in the loess. The grass field in the east of Shuoxiangguan, which was obtained by a Moor, was invaded by yellow sand and turned into a barren land in the first year of Xianda. Therefore, the Green Mouse Department abandoned it and returned to the east of Bian County. The prince asked me to talk to the Bear Department, but didn't give me a bait. This business requires brains, I don't. Hai Rigu is not honest. He knows how to negotiate, just like he talked to Yang Heru. This black scorpion knows the rules very well. Shun Zichuan did not give him a clear bait, which meant that he negotiated the business more cost-effectively, and the rewards were all calculated by Shun Zichuan, but he wanted to get a bargaining opportunity from Xiao Qie. Xiao Qie didn't look at Hai Rigu and said, "You better have." Hai Rigu touched the back of his neck a few times, which was a bit daunting. The water he poured on him soon disappeared, and the skin that was exposed to the sultry was bronzed. Hai Rigu screwed up the water bladder, and continued, "I gave food for the Bear Department to winter, and they have enough food to stay in the territory. If you can only do this." Xiao Qie followed the shadows and set his eyes on the gate of Bianjuan. "That anyone can talk about this business." Hai Rigu bumped against the wall continuously, rubbed his unobstructed nose, and said, "Well, I will give them a new choice. The gate of Bian County is opening." Qi Zhuyin hung a knife around his waist and stood with his arms in front of the raised gate. She explored the road last night and returned at the end of the day. She only slept for 2 hours, looking tired and not so happy to see Xiao Qie. "Well," Qi Zhuyin said, "coming." Xiao Qie threw his waist card to Qi Zhuyin. Qi Zhuyin picked it up and didn't watch it. He handed the waist card to Qi Wei, and turned Xiao Qie into the city. "I came here in Xianda in 4 years, and Lu Guangbai said that he would plant trees." Xiao Qie's heavy armor was hot in the afterglow. He said, "Why is Bianjun still so barren?" "He wants to be beautiful." Qi Zhuyin was sleeping with a sore neck, and now he slightly shook his head and watched the lights gradually lighting up in the market. Xianda has been windy and sandy for 6 years. He saved money and bought batches of seedlings with Hazhou, while the spring planted on the border, before the end of the month, let the cavalry step on. Hassan was stationed at the Green Mouse Department at the time. Xiao Qie stepped onto the stage, put his helmet aside, and sat here with Qi Zhuyin, watching Tietchi enter the city. "It's Hassan." Qi Zhuyin didn't sit, she leaned against the door, dipped her chin in Yu Hui, and said, "You let Zhao Hui's letter arrive long ago. You have to fight a hard battle in June, but only if Hassan really turns around and heads south. Raid Duanzhou. If he doesn't come, the 2nd Battalion of Shosho will bear the consequences because of your troop transfer." Amor combined with the Hulu Department, and is still persuading the Bear Department to surrender, and Hassan has little food left, said Xiao Qie. "He must go to Duanzhou to get food." "You have a scorpion," Qi Zhuyin said. "What does Shen Zichuan want to do?" "Hassan fights Duanzhou, and the reinforcements will stop at Gerdal on the other side of the Chashi River. Only the bear can intercept me in the southeast." Xiao Qie extended his leg. Lanju wants to talk to the bear. Then he needs to show enough sincerity. Qi Zhuyin stood upright, raised his arms and pointed to the remote Xiefeng to the south. Bear has a pasture in the south, and Shunzichuan's granary can't feed them. You can't even imagine their greed. Qi Zhuyin, no, starting with Qi Shiyu, Chidong tried to negotiate with the bear department, hoping that they could rely on Daju like the North Face department, but it was too difficult. The bear department was the strong department, and they had nothing with the face department. They are completely different. They believe that their machete and bear horse can grab better land, so they don't even buy a Moore's account. Lan Juken gave them the territory of the Serpent Ministry, Xiao Qie said. They wandered around after leaving Shuoxiangguan. This is what they want most. Qi Zhuyin squatted down and said to Xiao Qie, yes, you are too smart. Some bears do want land, but are you a great desert monk? Shunzichuan's trick with Daju people at Zhongbua is useless here. The bears don't eat the painted bread. I deal with them. They are far more cunning than the snake department. Li Bear caught a four-legged snake under his eaves. He knelt on a smooth wooden board, leaning on the tail of the four-legged snake, and said to Ding Dao, bake it, it's delicious. Ding Dao cross-legged, holding a pen to write and draw, Konga glanced at the four-legged snake and said disgustingly, gee. Li Bear shook the four-legged snake gently and said, this is the snake of Goodle. For a long time, Ding Dao did not hear Li Xiong mentioning Jedale and Lei in shock. He clasped Ben and looked at the four-legged snake. Isn't this the same as the four-legged snake in Izaki? Li Xiong sniffed in the air and said, not the same, this one has a taste, a desert flavor, yellow sand. It all came out of Goodle. Ding Dao held his chin, pretending to be deep. It must be that Goodle has a hard time, or it's most comfortable to stay here. Li Xiong said, no, it likes to stay. Fei Sheng stood there and shouted Ding Dao. Ding Dao got up, and ran over without listening to Xiong's words. The sugar in his knees dropped to the ground. Stay in the old place. Li Xiong looked at Ding Dao, reached out and picked up the sugar, put his brain in his mouth, and said vaguely, I also like to stay in the old place. The current leader of the bear department is called Darren Tai. He is not a relative of the Sukba beast, but a relative of the Sukba beast. After Sukba's death in Goodle, Darren Tai fled to the back of the Green Mouse department with the remaining spirit of the bear department, and stayed there for many years. Darren Tai sat in front of the tent, took out the potatoes from the bonfire, broke it, and ate it on dried horse meat. He has a thick beard and looks funny when chewing. He was not as mighty and majestic as the Sukba beast, he was very short, not as short as a man with a bear. Wise man walking in the desert, you rode a horse to my tent and brought the eagle's advice. Darren Tai swallowed the hot potatoes and looked at the bark by the campfire. But the eagle's the request is too much. The bear leader under the snowy peak, Bar Yinpan sat saluting toward Dalandai. I bring the most sincere greetings of the eagle, and the requirements are negotiable, and the eagle treats you as friends. Hassan is the eagle of the snake department. He sent the wise man baying long before Xiao Qie left. Dalantai divided the other half of the potatoes into bayan, saying, the wolf cubs from the north are young and strong. I heard that he killed Hu Helu and Ochi, and defeated the eagle proud in Chashi Tienkeng. Scorpion. I'm old and can't ride a horse, I'm afraid I can no longer fight such young people. Baying took the potatoes with both hands, hesitated for a few moments, and said, you are the bear of the tiger Sukba beast. You are leading a bear department to the southeast of the desert, and it is hard for the snake department to provoke it. The strong, the eagle firmly believes that you are powerful. The wolf cub from the north is too young, he is far worse than the wolf king. If that's the case, Dalantai wiped his beard. So why didn't the eagle that cut off the head of the wolf king have slaughtered the wolf? Dalantai did not lie. He was really old, his hair was not grey, and his hands were no longer able to hold the knife for a long time. Although he did not have the spirit of Sukba beast, he was able to weather the blizzard with a bear part and maintain the dignity of the strong part in the desert. He is not a person like Hu Helu, he is more like a wise man than Baying. That's why the eagle sent me to find you, Baying said. Our mighty cavalry hasn't broken the line of defense from the north rail. It's not strong enough, but there is no food. The Wolf King is dead, respectful and full. The wise Dalantai, you also see the future of the desert. We are about to step into a new territory, where all the clans will no longer be hungry. This is the wish of Great Russia, Soviet Union and Japan, and the wish of the eagle. We need your help. The potatoes buried in the campfire scented, and Dalantai poked them with a tree branch, and was not impressed by the respect of Bayan, saying, a few years ago, Gaganyas of the Deer Department used unwise means in Gudel. Killed my monarch, and dedicated the head of the tiger to Amor, and Amor did not refuse. He picked up a potato again, but did not open it, but wiped the dust on it with his rough fingertips. Amor is a greedy vulture. He is not our brother. Sitting at the other end was a bear warrior who stood up, which meant to be a guest. Baying didn't move. He faced Dalantai and said, Dear Dalantai, it was all our stupid mistakes in the past. Now we have our common enemy. Who forced the enemy to wake up? Dalantai looked at Baying like a line of eyes. Amor intends to conquer all corners of the sun, and for this reason he has forced us to leave our homeland in such a shameless way. You are stupid. The next boy actually described the murder as a stupid mistake. Baying said, I apologize for my words, Dalantai. The light around them was blocked by bears. They stood around and looked at Baying's eyes as if they were looking at an antelope. Hassan wants our help, he should beg for our forgiveness. Dalantai peeled the potatoes. If Hassan killed his wife and made the deer hybrid pay the price, we agreed to send him aside. County. Don't do this. Baying has been dragged up, and he raised his voice. Gaganyas is dead, Doran is an innocent girl. Dalantai looked at Bayan and swallowed the potato alone. Chagan knelt reverently in his tent, his pale hair dangled on the ground, begging, Dear Russian, Soviet Union and Japan, the bear department is the most cunning bear in the desert. The food you need, our deer department will double supply. Chagan knelt reverently in his tent, his pale hair dangled on the ground, begging, Dear Russian, Soviet Union and Japan, the bear department is the most cunning bear in the desert. The food you need, our deer department will double supply. Big Russian, Soviet and Japanese Amor stared at the letter in the palm of their hands. Hassan was a bit similar to him, but he was rougher and stronger than Hassan. Amor put down the letter and gently scratched the growing stubble with his thumb, like a man who could be drunk at the road at any time. There is a saying in Daju, called acting within your means, Amor said in a low voice. I thank you for your zeal, but my friends and your flocks have been sent to the battlefield, and so on. This winter, who the deer department will starve a lot of people. Chagan's kneeling body looked humble. He said, I'd rather use all my cattle and sheep for a long life of Doran. Amor raised his head slightly, his fingers sliding along the knot of his throat, grinning. Chagan, you heard those winds. My son killed the Sukba beast. If Dalantai wants to give back his teeth, then I can donate my head. The Hulu department is willing to pay for his own work. Chagan raised his body and Huang Shao turned. His old face was black and yellow, and he said, But he can't take my daughter. Doran is the only daughter of Chagan, she is the pearl of Hulu. There are no strong horses or volcanic eagles in the deer section, but they have the sanctuary given by the ****** Chitty. The deer department lives in the depths of the desert and has the most fertile oasis in the desert, Chitty Lake. In the legend, they were children who grew up drinking the milk of the Chitty gods. When Dolan was born, she had the eyes of Chitty Lake. The deer department regarded her as the dew in the morning. She was the freest girl in the entire desert. Dori Lan married Hassan. She is no longer the pearl of Chitty Lake, but the pearl of the 6 deserts. Amua stood up, holding his hands, and his broad shoulders carried the sunlight leaking in. If Hassan can't even protect his wife, he's not worthy of being Adoran's husband and not being followed by the deer department. Chagan, my good friend, stand up, hold your machete and stare that kid. He dares to take your daughter seriously, and you can kill him. Chagan scratched his head, and the wrinkles carved between his foreheads arrived on the ground, saying, I follow Great Russia, Soviet Union and Japan, and I firmly believe that the eagle Hassan will not betray Doran because his father is the most brave in the desert. Warrior. Amor walked slowly, and when he got to the tent curtain, he was still scratching his throat. His eyes were looking at the yellowish sky, the afterglow spread, the old fingers rolled over the knot, revealing the scars left there. This was the mark left by Xiao Fengshu in the Hongyandong Mountains more than 10 years ago. A bear department was blinded by the snow-closed wind, and Darantai was still indulging in their glory in the past. Amor looked back, and said to Chagan, without the tiger suckber beast, the bear department can't stop me at all. Hassan. Baying received a reply from Hassan. He looked quickly and drank a bowl of milk tea after reading. He sat in front of the territory with the bear department, just in the wilderness, with books on his knees, and asked Dalantai to see him again. A bear warrior waved at him and drove out, "Get away." Baying drew a line in front of his knee with his finger and said, "I am in the territory of the Green Mouse Department, and I have not offended you." The soldier said, "You blocked us from peeing. Are you going to pee like a livestock in front of God?" Baying read, "As long as Darantai sees me again, this Gobi can give you a pit." Baying is a wise man. He is carrying a book, which is the wisdom eyes of the gods walking in the desert. As long as he is unwilling, no one can take off his pants and pee in front of him. Ochi and Hu and Lu did not respect Bayan, so they both died, which made Baying more mysterious. This is Baying's 5th day here, and Dalantai finally agreed to see him again. Baying picked up the book and said to Dalantai, "Dear, the North Rail Rider has arrived in Bien County, and there is not much time left for Hassan." Dalantai took off his boots and stepped on the lurse barefoot. "Did he kill his wife?" Baying enveloped Hassan's reply and was ready to hand it over. Dalantai raised his hand to stop. He shook his head and said, "I don't recognize the words, you read them." "Eagle wants me to tell you," Baying said. Bayan spoke halfway, and heard the sound of a horseshoe not far away. Dalantai stood up, and before he walked forward, he saw a jujube horse rushing in, stepping in the territory with a bear department, and finally stopped in front of Dalantai. "I heard at the shore of Chitty Lake that the respected Dalantai wanted my head," Duran clutching her horsewhip, watching Dalantai in the horse's restless step. "You want to take the tiger Sue the herber came to threaten my husband, so I should ask for my consent first. So you rushed to my territory." Dalantai admired the rumored red flower. "Did you decide to use your own head to win this victory for your husband?" Bayan rose to his feet, watching the fighters in the territory stand up. He hurried to approach, raised his arm and guarded Doran's horse, and said to Dalantai, "No, this is not what the eagle means. My brother killed your monarch." Doralan raised the back of her hand and wiped the dust on her face. She ran for several days in a row. "Gaganyas is the best brother in the world, but he doesn't deserve to be called a hero. You want to take revenge for Suckber Beast, you can take my head, but this is the grudge of the bear and the deer, not the grudge of you and Hassan, you should tell me." Doran said, and threw the dagger around her waist to the ground. "I am willing to confess my death to the bear department for the recklessness of Gaganyas. Darantai is a good man. He picked up this dagger and killed me, and our deer department paid off this debt. Lantai picked up this small dagger, which was exquisite and beautiful, inlaid with cat's eyes, just like Doran, with a sharp but innocent beauty. You have courage. If Gaganyas had the courage like you, the bear and the deer can become brothers many years ago. There is no if in this world. You take my head to sacrifice the tiger, and then pick up your machete to follow the eagle." Dorlan rolled over and dismounted, shaking her skirt in the night breeze. She walked to Lantai ahead. "The opportunity to have a bear department is at this moment." Lantai spread his palms, holding the dagger of Doran, as if full of blooming flowers. He looked at Doran, and strangely, he looked as if looking at his daughter. The howling wind in the night blew the flag of the bear department, and Dalantai said victoriously, "Stupid girl, this account is not over." Baying took the opportunity to say, "Eagle can promise to Dalantai that regardless of whether the Bear Ministry is willing to send troops to Bibian County, he is willing to return the Bear Ministry's homeland, and give the Bear Ministry's own cattle and sheep as a replacement." Lube apologized for the injustice. "But if Dalantai insists on taking his wife, he will bet on his life, and he will never die without a bear." Dalantai's eyes narrowed at all times, and he heard similar words. Hai Rigu sat in the tent, and 2 days ago, he respectfully said to him, the Prince of Zhongbua extended his arms to Dalantai. "We are willing to regain the homeland for the bear department. Before that, Duanzhou also returned will provide enough food for the bears. These people all know that there is a bear department who wants to return to their homeland. They prefer to stay in the old place and guard the snow peak for Sukba beast. Dalantai shook his palm, and said kindly and briskly, "There is a bear department who has got what he deserves, and he will fight for you." He gave Hai Rigu the same answer. 2 hours later, the stars fell flat and flat. 2 hours later, the stars fell flat and flat. Xiao Qie stood on the sand dunes and drank his remaining horses. The spirits rushed into his throat, and he swallowed slowly, leaving the spiciness in his mouth for a long time. After night, the wind will intensify, and Huang Shuo buried the horseshoes of the waves, and after 2 minutes, Xiao Qie saw the returning Hai Rigu. Hai Rigu dismounted, took off the veil covering his mouth and nose, and sifted a few mouthfuls of sand, saying, "Dalantai agreed." Xiao Qie didn't say anything. Chen Yang behind him asked, "What conditions did you say?" "We gave him the grass field in the east of Chengguan Pass, which is the hometown of the bear department, and Dalantai wanted to go back." "You gave them wide grass fields," Xiao Qie repeated. Hai Rigu raised his hand slightly, and said to Xiao Qie, "The prince wants to give the territory with the bear department and the snake department, which is more fertile, and I think my negotiation is more cost-effective. The territory of the snake department is close to the north. Moving the bear department there is easier to control. This is the result Lanju wanted, but you pushed them back to the east of Xiefeng." Xiao Qie put the wine bag, tightened it and threw it to Chen Yang next to him. No eyes on the east side of Xiefeng can stare at them. Hai Rigu followed a few steps and followed behind Xiao Qie, saying, "With the bear department nostalgic, the territory of the snake department is no longer fertile, and it is difficult to shake their determination. Second Lord, only the east side of Xiefeng can impress Dalantai. Moreover, the grass fields there are almost gone. After all, they still have to migrate north. You are playing with a flower gun." Chen Yang leaned against his chest and blocked Hai Rigu. He raised his arms to keep away from him, and did not allow Hai Rigu to continue chasing Xiao Qie. "You didn't talk to Dalantai about the mouse department territory. As a bait, the territory of the green mouse department is also a chip of Zhongbua. In Shun Zechuan's budget, Hai Rigu should first talk to Da Lantai about the territory of the green mouse department, and finally throw out the territory of the serpent department, but Hai Rigu did not. In doing so, he knows how to make a profit for himself. He wants to use Kuzano on the east side of Xiefeng to replace the territory of the serpent department and leave this fertile land to the black scorpion he led." Xiao Qie was on the horse. Chen Yang was still blocking Hai Rigu. Hai Rigu couldn't push Chen Yang away. He walked irritably in the place, and opened Chen Yang's arms helplessly, saying, "You should talk to Dalantai yourself and see if he will go according to your guess." Chen Yang Daijing, who had a miserable sword in Hairi, said, "He has left as you guessed. You want the territory of the serpent ministry, and the monarch will naturally give it to you, but not in this way. You stay I've been with the prince for so long, but I don't know your master at all." Hai Rigu likes not wanting to quarrel with Chen Yang. He turns around and faces Chen Yang. Chen Yang stepped back to chase Xiao Qie's horse. Hairi faced Hirono in ancient times, and said at the moment in Biantia, "You are very religious as a dog." After turning back, he smiled at Chen Yang as if nothing had happened. Chen Yang stepped on the saddle, and smiled at the sea. When he turned the horse's head, he also answered in the Lansha words, "The hybrid envious eyes are also very religious." Fuck. Hai Rigu was taken aback by Chen Yang's whispering words approaching the serpent accent. Before he got here, no one at Zhongbua could understand his whispering words. "I don't have much to do, but it's fast to learn whispering. You learned the accent of the eagle in Gadal, but it's not very good." Chen Yang said politely, "I bark you again, head." Hai Rigu was taken by surprise, nodded obediently, watching Chen Yang leave, raising his face to the dust. Xiao Qie returned to Bian County and did not find Qi Zhuyin in the account. He went around and saw the commander in another account. Qi Zhuyin awoke, listening to the movement, and leaned out to whistle Xiao Qie. Xiao Qie held the wolf and sword, neither was it to enter, nor was it to retreat. The rouge between Qi Zhuin's lips was smeared halfway, and the little belly of her 2 little thumbs were stained with this little red, but she was not painting it herself, but she leaned over and handed it to Hua Xiangyi. Hua Xiangyi raised her body and carefully applied the rouge on the lips. This color is so beautiful. Hua Xiangyi's voice was soft and tender. It's a good match for the commander, and it's inconspicuous at night. She painted the last point, and asked Xiao Qie with a side smile, doesn't it look good? Xiao Qie crossed his arms and looked for a long while. He hesitated and said, okay. Qi Zhuyin is not without makeup. She often wears makeup when she is at home or when she is going to a banquet. However, despite Xiao Qie's excellent eyesight, she can't see that this rouge is different from what the coach usually wears. You don't understand. Hua Xiangyi pointed her finger away from the lap on her knees, which contained a small mirror with hollow beads, which she picked up and held it to Qi Zhuyin. Qi Zhuyin wiped her hands on the pupper. She could only see her lips and chin in the mirror. She laughed and said, it looks good. Xiao Qie waited for a while. Qi Zhuyin lowered the curtain and came out. Madam is here to settle the bill for me, Qi Zhuyin said. Xiao Qie coughed into the open night and said, oh. Xiao Qie looked at Qi Zhuyin. The coach is young, but not young, at least for women. She has already passed the marriageable age. Xiao Jiming and Lu Guangbai had a good relationship with her, but did not ask about her marriage, because everyone knew that Qi Zhuyin could not marry. Miss 3 calculated it well. I heard it when I was in the capital. Your account at the house is cumbersome, and her help is even more powerful. The queen fell. She was no better than Chidong in the past. Shui Yanqing finished the investigation of the city of Yuncheng, and the flower family was in danger, and she was not allowed to stay by my side. I was afraid the aunt in the family would make trouble. Instead of following this explanation, she teased, also I like girls so much. Xiao Qie stood still, and the two had already boarded the city wall. Your scorpion is back, Qi Zhuyin said. Xiao Qie pointed to the southeast and said, a bear department is willing to make way for you. They want to retreat to the grass field in the east of Shuoxiangguan and return to the original place. Qi Zhuin's raised face was reflected in the firelight. Hua Xiangyi said it well. This color of rouge was inconspicuous and was stained by the night, just like Qi Zhuin's original color. She looked playful and said, Dalan Tai is stupid. It is only a fool's job to abandon the site of the Green Mouse Department and return to the east side of the snow wind that has been buried by the yellow sand. He's not stupid, Xiao Qie said. He gave you the way. He wants you to go to Gadal. When you get to Gadal, he just stuck your retreat. What did he say to you at that time? Anything is fine. Nadalantai is still a fool, because you and I can see such an easy-to-understand tactic. Qi Zhuyin tapped her arm with her fingertips, and she looked into the night. You have been mixing with Lu Guangbai for a long time. You learned it's all his rustic. Standing on the ground, he wants to dig the ground 3 feet, and he can't wait to remember the terrain of thousands of miles in his heart, but ignore the tribe itself. Qi Zhuyin bypassed Xiao Qie. She supported the wall stack, flipped it lightly, stepped on the gap, and bent over to check the crossbow. Daran Tai gave way to me, and I guess he wouldn't stop. There are not so many soldiers in the bear department, and Dalan Tai can only choose to concentrate his forces, otherwise he can't resist the attack from either party. Xiao Qie thought about Xu Yang and said, you mean Dalan Tai wants to concentrate his forces on attacking other places? I left Bianjuan. The 40,000 garrison here would have to go halfway. Without Lu Guangbai, there would be no generals who could fight back and forth with them. When would you wait without attacking? Qi Zhuyin said. That wouldn't be worth it, sister, Xiao Qie said. Since Dalan Tai is not strong enough, then he killed Bianjuan, and you will return soon. He will also be attacked by the Tsangjuan garrison in the rear. He couldn't keep Bianjuan. He went to the trouble to get here, not just for food like Hassan. Qi Zhuyin straightened up, and her hair was disturbed by the wind when she turned her head. Instead of continuing her deductions like Lu Guangbai, she said, let's try it out. After Xiao Qie left the battlefield, he was tired from the north, but Hassan's onslaught didn't abate, and Lu Guangbai could only press the tune to keep Luoshan intact. The eagle eye of Duanzhou could not see the Chashi River, and Hua Lingyun quietly left Duanzhou at this time. Hua Lingyun's team had very few people. They were all Jin Yiwei. They were quiet, carrying simple bags, and riding a pony captured from Ochi. They rested at sunrise, moved after sunset, and walked north along the Chashi River. The wind tonight was very dry, and Huilingyun drank the last drop of water in the water bag. He wiped his mouth and sat on horseback looking forward. If only the nasty ghost of Fei Sheng was there. Huilingyun hung the water bladder back to his horse. He didn't have the insight of Fei Sheng, he seemed very dull in the night, but could only act at night. Where are we going? Following Huilingyun's Jin Iwei, he took off the wind collar and filled the water. We have been going north for 5 days. We'll stay here, Huilingyun said. You can go out with your eyes closed. When they walk north to the place near Chassaneing, they will return, but they will not return to Duanzhou, but will continue to follow the original road to the north. Jin Iwei said nothing. They were reprimanded by Qiao Tianya before leaving, so no one refuted Huilingyun on the way. The pony is very endurable and walks on the Gobi Desert for several days without fatigue. Their stiff necks look stupid, but Jin Iwei has become accustomed to the speed that does not match his appearance. This is a good horse. Huilingyun stopped by the river when it was dawning. He let his horse drink water and squatted beside himself to wash his face. The river was cold in the morning and it was shocking to hit his face. Huilingyun opened the water bladder, dart into the river, and suddenly saw the dark red color rolling out in the sound of guru. His chin's fingers touched the cold but soft thing, and the dark red rose with black hair. Dead man. Jin Iwei, who was also washing his face, sighed, dragged his hair, and dragged the body out of the water. Huilingyun turned over the body, and the face of the body was swollen. He wrung out the mud to identify the body. The armor was cut off, Jin Iwei said quickly. People are dying high. Huilingyun ripped off his clothes and stood up suddenly, saying, This is Tietchi. An iron ride ran on the road from Luoshan to Chassaneing. He was trembling in the bumps, leaving long blood on the ground where the horseshoe passed. The helmet covered his face, he was just an unknown soldier. His lips moved, but he could only make a sound. Horse. The horse rushed into the post 50 miles south of Chassaneing, and he planted it and fell to the ground. Please ask the racecourse. He persisted here, and died before he had finished speaking. As long as he arrives here is victory, the iron ride of the post will immediately spread the news to the Shosan battalion, and the reinforcements will go south. However, there was a dead silence in the station, and there were corpses everywhere, including the eagles in the eagle room. The heat wave floated, not even the sound of birds. Huilingyun turned on her horse, held the reins, and said, Go to Luoshan station. Huilingyun turned on her horse, held the reins, and said, Go to Luoshan station. Luoshan racecourse is too far, even the short stallion can't reach it. Huilingyun can only choose the nearer Luoshan post station, which is close to Chassaneing, which is the supply station for Luoshan and the north. The horse's wheezing began to worsen, the weather was too hot, and Jin Iwei's strong body had to rely on watering to avoid heat stroke. Huilingyun ran from the Chashi River to the northwest and ran for 2 full hours. When the station was seen, it was completely dark. Dead man, Jin Iwei raised his finger and shaved his nose, and said, All here are dead people. An iron rider planted in front of the open door of the post. He had been dead for a few hours. Blood and water had soaked the ground, and his body covered in heavy armor was about to stink soon. Jin Iwei dismounted, did not flip Tietchi's body, squatted to examine for a moment, and said to Huilingyun, This is a man. Huilingyun looked at the arrow on Tietchi's back and nodded. Tietchi had 2 arrows on his back, and he closed the eyes with the 2 arrows galloping to the post. Jin Iwei stood up, covered his mouth and nose, and shone the torch forward with his other hand, saying, Here his voice stopped abruptly. There were corpses and corpses in the station, and the post was hung on the flagpole, as if it was a tack hanging in the silent night. Huilingyun took the torch, looked closer, and found that Yi Yang's head was cut off. The horses were hacked to death, said Jin Iwei, who illuminated the stables. Even if there was a life, the Luoshan and Chassaneing camps could not be reached before dawn. The eagles were dead. The door of the eagle room was not closed tightly, and the eagles who had not broken off their anklets had their necks broken. The Luoshan post had no live mouth, and the wild dogs fed here were hacked to death. Biancha cavalry has been here. Huilingyun held the torch and was lost in thought. After the Luoshan racecourse was established, It became the prototype of the North and Central Bow News Hub, so Shenzechuan repaired it to be extremely solid. There are 800 people stationed at the Luosha post station. There are not only the North Rail riding, but also the China Boss Guard, which is equivalent to a small military camp. Emergency reporting points have been set up on the four-way road, and Wanglu can follow on 3 sides. A few days ago, Lu Guangbai asked Luosha Road to be more vigilant. There was no negligence. The cavalry is good at raids, Jin Yiwei said. Bianbo Camp. Hualingyun suddenly turned around and repeated, Bianbo Camp. Bianbo Camp. Last June, the Bianxia cavalry raided Bianbo Camp, which was to detour from the south and borrow the Luoshan Road. Shenzechuan and Xiao Jie later blocked that road, but eastward near the Chashi River, it was impossible to block it. The Bianxia cavalrymen came here in Xiandinian and knew the terrain here. The station connects Luoshan and Shoshan Battalion, just stepping on the road that the cavalry used to lead to Luoshan. Hualingyun jumped up the steps, opened the door. They can avoid their eyes and sneak in here, and certainly not many people come. Jin Yiwei took a hand and put down the post on the flagpole. The scorpion is likely to sneak in. Whether it was a scorpion or not, Hassan truncated the post, or did not want to let the news of Luoshan's attack spread to the north. He was delaying the time of reinforcements. However, this group of attacking Bianxia cavalry did not stop. According to the direction of the horse road, Hualingyun guessed that Hassan intends to let these people continue to go south and cut off the connection between Dunju and Duanzhou directly, so that Duanzhou was isolated and helpless. Situation. This is closer to the 3rd Battalion of Shaw. Hualingyun turned to the lower stage, blew his whistle, called his horse. We continue to go north, we can reach the 3rd Battalion of Sand before dawn, and ask for help from the north. Hualingyun could not reach Dunju. He could only choose one way, that is, to let the Chassaning's North Railway ride immediately south to support Duanzhou. However, this means that Duanzhou and Tuanzhou have lost all news, especially Duanzhou, which is the first to suffer. As long as the Chassaning support is wrong, Duanzhou will be destroyed. Hualingyun whimpered his horse. His time is urgent and must be fast. Jin Yiwei's chasing stars and galloping like a gallop, they broke the silence on the road and moved quickly in the shadow of the tree. Hualingyun's breathing was short, because for a long time, he had a spicy pain on the inner thigh. The saddle was damp and sweat soaked their cheeks. They had no time to rest for a few days, like tight strings. Fast. Hualingyun tightened his whip and raised his arm in the bumps, but before he hit it, the horse under his seat hissed, his forefoots merged, and his knees were planted. Hualingyun immediately hugged her head and rolled down. The ghosts ran in the shadows of trees on both sides of the road, and Hualingyun's carp stood up and pulled out the knife. Hearing the rapid footsteps broke through the bushes and pounced on himself. Trip Maso! Shouted Jin Yiwei, who followed him, ambush. Hualingyun blocked the knife, but it was useless, and the opponent directly knocked him out with his body. He leaned across the ground and rolled to the root of the tree. There was a rush of wind behind him. Hualingyun grabbed the roots of the tree with one arm, slid up, raised his legs, and avoided a knife. Scorpion. No, Hualingyun gritted his teeth and said, it's a cavalry. The elite of the snake department. Elite moved his steps quickly in the envelope, like a closed net. The sound of the shosho footsteps was abnormally neat, like a twisted snake, and even the traces left when passing through the sand were exactly the same. The machete on the left slashed towards Jin Yiwei's knee, but was unexpectedly blocked by the bang sound of the embroidered spring knife. Jin Yiwei's pedals were on the cavalry's chest, followed by a drawn sword, and he spun to the ground. When the bottom of the boot touched the ground, the blade edged like a flash of sky, breaking the cavalry's throat, and then they stepped on the ground and turned back on the horse on. The whole set of actions is done in one go. The elites who did not succeed took a half step back, and some of them touched their throats and said, Jin Yiwei. Jin Yiwei turned over the back of the knife and wiped the blood on the back of the blade while sliding his arm. He said, Jin Yiwei. Ladies are now called Jin Ichi. Hualingyun's horse couldn't stand up in fright. He flew a few steps, caught Jin Yiwei's outstretched arm, and jumped onto Jin Yiwei's horse. I can't wait to leave the north. Jin Yiwei drew the reins in the siege. Bianxia still has an ambush here. We haven't had enough time to reach the 3rd Battalion of Shaw. Back to Hualingyun didn't finish talking, so he held the knife in both hands, slammed the blade into a semicircle, and smashed the scimitar suddenly. Back to Duanzhou. Can't go north. U-turn. Hualingyun hurriedly wiped the sweat from her face, south to the south. Hassan was too cautious. He slaughtered the Luosha post station without even letting the horses and eagles, but left the elite on the northward pavement to beware of the fish that might be caught. But this also gave Hualingyun a chance, and Hassan left a small number of elites here. Fuck. Jin Iwei shook off the blood on the knife surface. This knife is still from Yuchi, and I've thrown it away. The horses were hoofing in place, Jin Iwei was pulling the reins and he just fell off his head. The cavalry on the side had swooped up, and the saddle slid to the right. The horse could not stand the gravity and followed. Hualingyun bent his elbow and hit the cavalry's face. The cavalry on the left climbed up like a locust, and Jin Iwei caught the machete and was turned over by the force. Jin Iwei fell to the ground, and several scimitars suddenly hooked. He tried his best to scream, holding his embroidered spring sword with both hands, and lifted up in the rubbing sound of the stinging ears, and the blue muscles on the back of his hands suddenly appeared. I can't hold it. Jin Iwei was carrying the weight of a few people, lying on the ground with his neck up, breathing heavily, sweating like rain, jumping with his forehead abruptly, shouting hard, "Brother! Up!" Hualingyun ran away with his horse. Jin Iwei was almost discouraged and scolded, "Your mother." Hualingyun hit the cavalry against the horse, and his tight lips were salty. It was not sweat, but a ****** bite. After running some distance, he suddenly turned around, inserted the knife back into the sheath, and then drove straight back. The horseshoe broke through the superimposed figure. Jin Iwei's lowered arm couldn't stop him, and the cavalry's head was close to his face. At the very moment, the pungent scent slammed into the nostrils, and the deafening explosion accompanied the splashing plasma, spraying Jin Iwei's face. Hualingyun leaned down and took Jin Iwei's hand and took the man back to his horse. Breakthrough. Hualingyun was so excited, he took the smoking fire, and rushed out towards the south, shouting, "Break!" Yin Chang drank his neck and drank his wine. He finished drinking, drank several wine bowls in a row, lay on the wall pile, and asked the goalkeeper below, "Are there any? This wine is delicious." The gatekeeper walked a few steps and saw Yin Chang's face through the fire and moonlight, and said, "No, you young and old, drink, this is still in rotation. I won't drink it at rest." Yin Chang's feet were a little soft. He shook drunkenly and looked at the wall-stacked torches. "Well, how can there be less bows and arrows? Come on, make up." Before Fei Sheng reached the city wall, he heard Yin Chang yelling. He kicked the newly brewed wine store underneath the crossbow with his feet, pulled the cloth around, and then went up aggressively, holding Yin Chang's back collar, and said, "Make up, people will come and make up immediately, you go back to sleep." Yin Chang's heel slipped on the ground, so he was taken away, rubbed a few red noses, and complained, "Isn't General Liu here yet? I waited for a few days and wanted to see him again. I drank all the wine, it's been several rounds." Yin Chang went to the battlefield with Xiao Qie last time. When he saw Lu Guangbai, he was very excited. He drank and drank Guangbai to drink. He spit 3 times a night, and lay in a tent and slept the next day. Zhuo Qianqiu said nothing, and immediately sent Yin Chang back. Fei Sheng couldn't bear the smell of wine, he waved his palm, twisted his nose, and said, "Don't say that, I can't afford to lose this person." Yin Chang was unwilling, waving his arm, raising his neck to see Fei Sheng, and shouting, "Drinking you a shame? Well, the old man hasn't even thought you shame." Fei Sheng dragged people to the bottom, changing the waist with the duty room. These days, the patrol is strict, and he took some time to sign. Yin Chang took the opportunity to look for wine, sniffed around with an unscentable nose, and muttered, "Where is it hiding? Here it is." He rolled up his robe corner, knelt on the ground, and rubbed his ***** and looked under the crossbow on the bed. Fei Sheng is still tender. Yin Chang tilted his head, and he went in to drink enough, and said, "My little boy, oh so far, oh." Fei Sheng turned his head, put his pen aside, and prepared to call the old man to stop, but at this moment he heard a very thin click sound. His ears were so sensitive that the sound of the wind could be heard clearly, and he had to tilt his head and listen again calmly. The flag fell and the wind stopped near the gate. Yin Chang finally got enough wine, but instead of digging out, he kept his posture on the ground, smelling the smell of the land. When Fei Sheng didn't respond, he yelled, "Enemy attack!" The heavy stone of the trebuchet slammed into the wall, the dust splattered, Fei Sheng hugged his head to avoid the debris, and listened to the alarm from the upper floor. The garrison lifted its drumsticks, smashed them, and shouted, "The enemy is attacking, the enemy is going to get up." Fei Sheng pushed away the soldiers, rushed up the city wall, and breathed in air when he saw the front of Duanzhou clearly. Yin Chang got up and patted the passing army with a scabbard. He said sharply, "Ignite the beacon and quickly report it to the monarch." Yin Chang stepped on the city gate and pulled Fei Sheng. "With your waist card, lead Genie to pack his bags and protect the monarch and you." Yin Changtong's red nose was drawn twice. He didn't look at the outside of the city and pointed to Langyantai on the side. The smoke of the fire ignited. "Xiaosheng, you will protect the governor westward and go to Dunju." Shun Zichuan was not asleep yet, holding his eyebrow under the lamp, listening to Kong Ling talking about the dam, listening to the courtyard suddenly chaos. Qiao Tianya opened the bamboo curtain, Ding Dao and Li Xiong followed. Kong Ling stood up and asked, "This is?" "Master, Qiao Tianya wore a good knife, the cavalry raided." The gentleman inside the hall stood up. "Ya." Yarrow Wenyu immediately looked at Shun Zichuan and said, "The reinforcements from the north have not arrived yet." Shun Zichuan lowered his arm and stared at the candlelight. After a while, he said, "Duanzhou did not get any news, either the battlefield fell or Luoshan fell. This room is full of scholars. Jiao Zhongxiong, who has not experienced war, is even more pale. They are all looking at Shun Zichuan, and the monarch is the backbone of everyone." At this moment, Shun Zichuan could not show his fearful expression. He straightened his tea lid and stood up. Ding Dao shook open his jacket and put on Shun Zichuan, who blocked it with his hands over his back. The governor said, "Yangshan snow is coming. Where is the horse? Where is the horse?" Dead, the awakening garrison followed Yin Chang, the surrounding whistle was annihilated, and no one returned. Yin Chang filled the wine pouch, hung it back to his waist, and took a sip when he inserted the knife. Hassan on Dog Day. The station did not move, the whistle was dead, and the news could not go out, and the reinforcements could not come. "Reorganize the sentry post," Yin Chang said, "waiting for the opportunity to ignite Langyantai before dawn, so that you can get news from Beibei, Dunju, and Bianjuan. Duanzhou has been slaughtered because the whistle can't run over the horses in Bianxia, so when Shun Zichuan established the Duanzhou crossing horse road, he modeled the Wanli beacon in Bian County. As long as these 3 lines are lit, the 3 parties know that critical." As soon as Yin Chang opened the curtain, he heard the drums of war screaming outside the city. The cavalry drummed. Yin Chang ran his legs and ran towards the wall. He opened his throat as he ran, and shouted with stubbornness, "Ready!" The archers between the stacks pulled their strings neatly, holding their breath and staring out of the city. A small barrel drum is fixed on both sides of the horses of the Bianxia cavalry. With the striking of the night, this is a precursor to the charge. When the drum sounds *** will be suspended, the horses snoring hot and rush forward. Yin Chang immediately waved his hand and continued to yell, "Arrow!" No one knows that the cavalry forward is divided into 2 wings at a time, revealing the shield infantry behind. The infantry moved quickly, approaching the gate against the arrow rain. Duanzhou faces the east, with an open terrain and close to the Chashi River, where Shun Zichuan dug and built a moat and wanted to build a moat. But this year's time is tight, only the channel of the main gate facing the east has taken shape, and has not yet drained from the Chashi River. Xiao Qie told Shun Zichuan before going south, so Shun Zichuan removed the square brick at the bottom of the ditch and replaced it with iron tribulus for the northern army. The gate opened, Yin Chang rushed out with the Duanzhou defense forces, and removed the passboard on the trench before the Bianxia cavalry charged. Without the board, the cavalry would not be able to cross the trench into the gate. As soon as the arrow rain on the wall stopped, the oil tanks of fire ignited. Yin Chang dragged the board back, and continued to shout, "Smash the can!" The fire oil tank on the wall stack smashed in unison, and the fire flames shone brightly. The garrison leaned forward and threw the fire oil tank down. The oil splashed on the infantry's shield and burst into flames. But Yin Chang wasn't happy, because he saw the infantry scattered and stepped out of the way to cover up the leader. Oops. This siege vehicle was originally used to cover trenches. It has a screen in front and a shed in the back. The head car in the middle can shield the arrows for the soldiers who dug the ground. In addition, it also has a prominent function, which is to extinguish fire. The infantryman hidden in the head of the car lifted out, and used a dagger to cut through the leather bag containing the river water, and it was able to contain the fire of the oil tank in an instant. Yin Chang recognized the purpose of the opponent. Hassan consumed the arrows and fire oil tanks of the defending army by the infantry and pushed the infantry to the trench. This was to prepare the cavalry in the rear. Archers prepare. As soon as Yin Chang's words fell, the infantry raised their shields again. I didn't know Yin Chang didn't plan to release an arrow at this moment. He pulled out his sword, rushed forward with the garrison, rushed to the trench, and jumped out like an old lion in the horrified eyes of the soldiers on the edge. Stop it! Yin Chang fell heavily on the brick wall of the ditch, and his feet suddenly slid down. He grabbed the edge of the ditch and stepped up a few times, climbing up, and the defensive forces followed Yin Chang to kill the progressive army camp. Arrow. The arrow rain suddenly came, and the infantry who couldn't hold their shields finally fell. Who is that? The strong man on the pony leaned his head and saw Yin Chang's white hair across the crowd. He touched his machete, with a four-legged snake above his bare arms, and said with interest in Biancha, like a hero. The strong Zhuo Li doesn't recognize him, said the cavalry following the man. He is the commander of the Azumi Defense Force, and the old general who captured Fanju for Shunzichuan is called Yin Chang. Zhuo Jianming wrote the words of the week and repeatedly said, one taste? Prosperity means. The cavalry soothed the restless horse. He has the courage of a lion. Zhuo Li continued to look at Yin Chang, clamped the horse's belly, and moved forward without hesitation in the shaking. I'm going to fight him. The cavalry looked back at the Rainbow Eagle banner and advised, Hassan's order has not come yet, and this is not the time for Zhuo Li to strike. Zhuo Li moved his sturdy arm, pulled out his machete, and said, Hassan wants us to make a quick decision. I can't wait. The garrison assembles the people in the city. They will send the people to Shimen, where the connected horse road leads to Dunju. If the east gate fails, they will have a chance to escape before the massacre begins. The people came over one after another, dragging their homes with their mouths, looking hurriedly, and occasionally a few babies were crying, and they were soon covered up. More and more people gathered, and with the bombardment of the east gate, there were repressed gasps everywhere. The gentlemen have been here for a long time. They are carrying simple bags, and they are all cases. This is their hard work. Jiao Zhongxiong's white complexion did not recover. He tightened his baggage and stood with the crowd. Kong Ling pushed Yarrow Wenyu with a pocket on his chest and a restless tiger slave. Yarrow Wenyu's four-wheeler passed the people. Hearing that someone was sobbing in the crowd, he turned his head and looked at the other side. First, sir, the widow who was alone holding the child covered her nose and mouth, whispered in a choked throat, Are you going to slaughter again? The young boy's eyes were gentle. He raised his hand, handed his papa to the other side, and said, No. Weeping all around, his words didn't seem to be persuasive in the sound of the fight in front. If the city breaks and people can't run horses, they still have to die. They have to die. The man pulled the only donkey left, crouched at the corner, and said with a local accent, I shouldn't go to Duanzhou to slap. Where did the garrison go? Someone approached the door and patted the door. Now open the door and let us run to Dunju. How many can we escape before the city breaks? The crowd was noisy, they shoved towards Shimen, and the restless atmosphere floated in the night. Jiao Zhongxiong was forced to move forward, holding his baggage and squeezing sideways to Kong Ling nothing to step on. Jiao Zhongxiong guarded his baggage, and raised his head, You all have to. The crowd couldn't hear his voice at all. I don't know who had hit his elbow on Jiao Zhongxiong's stomach. He didn't hold his baggage, watched his paper and pencils scattered on the ground, and hurriedly bent to pick it up. But there were too many people, and before he could find enough, the pen was broken. Jiao Zhongxiong hurriedly said, Mo step pen, Mo step pen. Kong Ling was too crowded to stand and Yarrow Wenyu's four-wheeler was inconvenient. It would be bad if he rushed into the crowd. Kong Ling held the tiger slave in one hand and dragged the four-wheeler in one hand, and said to the surroundings, "Where is the guard? Come and protect Yuan Zhuo." Yarrow Wenyu's will got stuck on a hard object, and suddenly jumped with the impact, almost overturning. He turned his gaze and looked at the crowd. The moonlight was untimely quiet, sliding down the floor along his sleeves. The sound of tapping the door intensified, shouting "Open the door" everywhere. The memories of Duanzhou's slaughter are too deep. They can't see the dawn. The fiercer the fight in front is, the more bottomless everyone is. Hey! Jiao Zhongxiong waved his sleeves angrily, and stopped writing. He explored his arm and grabbed the four-wheeler, and brought it in front of himself. What's the rush? The city isn't broken yet, the monarch is ahead. Shouts suddenly sounded all around. Where has the governor gone? Where did Shen Zichuan go? No soldiers and no guards, have you left? Where would Jiao Zhongxiong know this would happen? He hurriedly said, "The prince is." Shen Zichuan ran. Someone stomped. No one was seen. The atmosphere seemed to be ignited. The original depressed cry burst into the crowd. The impatience was rampant. The sound of the door slamming gradually turned into a slamming door. The panic filled with hysterics. The hidden danger named Shen Wei finally broke out. It was like a sharp sword hanging above Shen Zichuan's head at all times, hiding the Bobo's resistance to Shen Zichuan. Even if Shen Zichuan obtained the 6 states of China and Bo, it could not be eradicated. Shen Wei deserted the city and fled. Duan and done, the corpses of the dead and blood. Now Shen Zichuan did not show up, and Shen fled again. "Open the door, open the door!" Someone cried. The gate protruded forward slightly and squeezed out the gap. The remaining garrison could not stop the crowd, and stretched its neck and reprimanded, "Don't squeeze." But it didn't work. The crowd was messed up. The guard was panting, and did not dare to open the door. The eastern sentry was killed. If the cavalry had gone to the west, no one knew. He now opened the gate and stabbed Duanzhou from behind. It was a real city break. "It's up." The garrison forces pushed the people by brute force, pulled out the sabers around their waists, and shouted, "Who the asterisk 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 is it?" Kong Ling suddenly said, "Not good." Sure enough, as soon as the garrison fired his sword, the surrounding area erupted completely, and baggage and fists slammed into him like a shower, and the crowds rushed forward, shouting, "Open the door." The garrison can't really kill someone. He guarded his head and noticed that someone was grabbing a knife in the back, and he couldn't help saying, "I'll hack someone to grab a knife." The gate was swayed and the garrison had not stood still. A huge force came from the back, and then the entire gate made a bang, and was hit by a collision from outside. My day. The garrison lay on the ground, was stomped a few feet, climbed up and held the people blocking the road, pushed people frantically, and shouted at their soldiers, "Hurry up the door." "Cavalry!" The crowd exclaimed, and everyone rushed back and forth. The cavalry broke the city. The garrison dragged its knife, leaned against its back against the crumbling door, drank neatly with dozens of soldiers, and tried to push the broken gate back. However, the giant wood collision outside slammed the city gate again, shaking their backs to numbness. Yarrow Wenyu supported his hand, and Jiao Zhongxiong and Kong Ling set aside each other, trying to push Yuan Zhuo away. Kong Ling's scalp exploded. He heard the long-lost horseshoe sound across the half-capped city gate. I took Yuan Zhuo out of the alley. Kong Ling pushed Yarrow Wenyu, hesitating about the case, and raised his robe. "Go ahead." Jiao Zhongxiong shook his hand fiercely. He said, "I'm staying with Mr. The gate was completely smashed, and the wood asterisk 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 splashed. The garrison could not carry it, and the cavalry jumped directly over their heads, ran in, and the machete waved at Jiao Zhongxiong. The garrison wolves rushed up, suddenly held the machete, carrying them and said, "Run fast, report to the government prince quickly, Shimon is broken, we keep dash." The words of the garrison fell, and the head fell to the ground. Jiao Zhongxiong yelled, his feet were soft, and he supported the four-wheeler and almost fell to the ground. Yarrow Wenyu watched the machete strike again, and his back was soaked, and he suddenly passed the car body and blocked in front of Kong Ling and Jiao Zhongxiong. A light ride across the crowd, it seemed like a stream of mercury in the night, and the long hum of the long sword flew into the cavalry's throat, and he rushed forward when the opponent fell down. Qiao Tianya pulls his horse, pulls out his sword, inserts the scabbard, gasps at Yarrow Wenyu, and yells at Ding Dao behind him, "Take the gentleman." Yarrow Wenyu didn't move. He clenched his handles and turned his head to look over Qiao Tianya. When he turned around, he saw Fengta Shuangyi hissing his hoof, and Shun Zichuan's white sleeves on his back rolled up. Yangshan's snow was like an angry dragon. When it passed the cavalry's throat, it was sharp and clear. The wind-stepping frost coat crossed the head and ran across the gate of the city. The genie behind him swept across the side sand cavalry and splattered in the squall wind. Qiao Tianya is also leaving, but Yarrow Wenyu looks at him, and there are faint blue tendons floating on the back of his hand, and he whispers to him, "Bring the prince." Shun Zichuan hugged his body and broke his right hand as early as in Dunju. He is now the master of 6 states, and accidentally died on the battlefield, and all the efforts of China Bo will be lost. Qiao Tianya was expressionless. Yarrow Wenyu looked at Qiao Tianya beggingly, saying word by word, "The Prince of Wancheng is not at risk." Shun Zichuan shook off the blood beads on the snow blade of Yangshan Mountain, pulled his horse in the open space, his chest was undulating, facing the wind, his right fingers faintly twitched. He stood in front, looking at the grey world. He is not strong, but he will not fall. In the sky, he looks like misty gravel and a sharp steel knife nailed in front of Duanzhou City. He is insidious and deceitful, and he will report without any means. He was not expected to be emperor at all. But Qiao Tianya leaned over and stunned Yarrow Wenyu's forehead. When Yarrow Wenyu thought he would do the same, he turned the horse's head and drank, "Oath to death, follow the palace king to kill the enemy." The sky was broken in a hurry, and there was a dim light in the dark. The blade of Shun Zichuan wiped the outside of the thigh, and the sharp blade shot out in the light. Like the owner, the wind-stepping frosty clothing only moved forward. Forward! Jin Ichi shouted in unison, "Follow him to kill the enemy." In these people's eyes, he is the monarch who opened the world. The Biancha cavalry who came to assault Shimen did not expect that such a light horse was hidden in Duanzhou City. They rode on the same pony and moved forward and backward in the dark world. The Biancha cavalry who came to assault Shimen did not expect that such a light horse was hidden in Duanzhou City. They rode on the same pony and moved forward and backward in the dark world. Shun Zichuan is a white bird among the crows. His clean blade cut through the dawn and said before the second round of charge, "Backward." Ding Dao guided the people to evacuate, and the gate of Shimen had been broken, and it would soon be reduced to a battlefield. Li Xiong erected Jiao Zhongxiong and followed Kong Ling and Yarrow Wenyu behind the people. Genie rides neatly in front of the door. They are few in number, but they are currently the absolute elite of Zhongbua. The surviving garrison of Simon did not dare to neglect, and pushed the car gable as a substitute at the foot of the city. This kind of movable wall filled with lime mortar is not as thick as the city gate, and a strong bow can be placed in the recessed place. The rainbow eagle flag hunted, and the cavalry of the Biancha had already beaten. The small barrel drum was deafening, and the pony plowed its hooves. They did not give Simon a chance to repair it, and they launched a second round of charge ahead of Jin Ichi in the sound of the drum. The sound of horseshoes was like a shower, the ground moved slightly, the gravel bounced, and the dust suddenly hit his face. Beneath the cavalry of the Biancha cavalry, it was as fast as a hungry panther. Qiao Tianya's horse is just behind the side of Feng Shuangyi. He tightened the reins and said, "Ready." Genie rides like a set, the wind blows over their cheeks, but no sound is taken away, they seem to even breathe away. The headed cavalry crossed the distance and approached Shun Zichuan while galloping. Shun Zichuan smelled the heavy sweat of the cavalry, and even saw the cavalry look on the cavalry. Time seems to stand still. The next moment, Shun Zichuan drew out his sword, and said, "Kill the enemy. Kill the enemy." Jin Ichi was like a storm of dark clouds, and the Biancha cavalry hit the gate of the city gate fiercely. The steel knife and the scimitar staggered. Shimen had no tactics at all. The only way was to kill the enemy. Only when the spirit of the cavalry was defeated head-on, the guarding of Duanzhou could continue. Shun Zichuan must rush to the forefront and unite the hearts of Duanzhou people in such a rude manner. The cavalry blocked the passage and blocked the light, and the two sides crowded here to kill the sky. The blood splashed around Sun Zichuan's sleeves. He waved the knife and turned over the enemy army in front of him, and the morning light leaked on his cheek, bleeding with sweat. The prince's eyes were dark, with an overwhelming momentum to shave the cavalry and rush forward. This side Sand cavalry was a sneak attack team behind, and lost to the high morale genie riding, backed up in the passage. They suffered in both confrontations and eventually had to withdraw from the channel. The defensive forces acted when they saw the opportunity. They pushed the car gable together and blocked the broken city gate when Sun Zichuan retreated. The cymbal made a click sound, and the defensive forces pushing the wall shouted, "Not enough bows." Sun Zichuan pulled his horse, Yang Shanxue drew to the side, and shed blood all the way. "Put down the spare hanging door," he said. The defending army at the city's head dragged the rope, and the hanging door slammed to the ground under the rolling sound of gears, blocking the inside of the passage. This is the second-tier defense wall in Duanzhou, which is used to deal with this situation. Sun Zichuan's right hand could not hold the knife tightly. As long as he stopped, his ***** would ache. He touched his sleeve pocket and found only Xiao Qie's blue pupper. He wrapped the handle of Yang Shanxue with the palm of his hand with a blue patch, and pinched his fingers to ensure that the knife would not come off. "Now past the north-south city gates," Sun Zichuan said. "Put down all the spare hanging gates." Amor had a military map of China Bo 7 years ago, and he has a lot of knowledge about Duan and Dun. From the tactics of Hassan's rapid raid and precise hitting, he must have seen the military map of China Bo. Since Duanzhou has become a lonely city, and it would be unwise to just keep the east gate. "Put down the spare hanging door and you can't go out anymore." Qiao Tianya watched the Chen Mang crossing the wall. Wolf Yangtai has not been lit yet. "Some people have to go to the Wolf Yangtai in Dun and Luo." Sun Zichuan clenched his palms. "The east gate is still open. As long as you light up the Wolf Yangtai near Bian County, the reinforcements of Bian County will arrive. Hassan must have arrested Xiao Qie by some means, but Xiao Qie will definitely come, so Hassan will choose to attack. He wants to make a quick decision, rushing to Xiao Qie to lead the reinforcements before breaking Duanzhou." He ran out of the granary and ran again. He didn't want to confront Xiao Qie directly at China Bo *****. Yin Chang led the garrison to retreat to kill a group of infantry. As long as he blocked the infantry from erecting a pass, the east gate would not be immediately charged by the cavalry. "Retreat, retreat. Don't be desperate, we have to fight protracted battles with these bitches." Yin Chang wiped the blood on his face and kicked the slow-moving garrison ass. The 4 gates of Duanzhou must be guarded, which is a difficult problem for the 20,000 defensive forces. Yin Chang is going to drag his time. His garrison must be able to withstand the cavalry charge, and before the cavalry charge, he must be able to resist the infantry and save energy. The garrison pulled back into the city. Yin Chang was the last group. He heard the sound of horseshoes behind him when he was going to cross the trench. The old man rolled on the spot with his field-proven insight and shouted, "Draw a knife." That crescent-like machete hooked straight over the position where Yin Chang's neck was just now. The old man touched his neck with anxiety and shouted at the comer, "You won't say hi." Zhuo Li couldn't understand Yin Chang's words. His powerful horseshoe had stepped in front of Yin Chang, and Yin Chang rolled over and rolled the dust all over. Zhuo Li said happily, "Delicate prey." Yin Chang couldn't understand Zhuo Li's words either. He supported the ground with one hand, holding the knife in the back of the other hand, and confronted Zhuo Li strangely at the edge of the trench. Ferocious. Yin Chang wiped his red nose with his earthy thumb and defined Zhuo Li. His eyes were as quiet as the sky, and the noisy shells couldn't shake him. His title to the earth is very different from the noise of appearance, and he always has unparalleled calmness in times of crisis. Yin Chang's deep voice was dumb, and the old man said with certainty, "I went to Zizhou 7 years ago." Zhuo Li understood the word Zizhou, and he gave a machete to Yin Chang, and said in a lame Dazhou dialect, "I've been here, take this knife." Yin Chang's grey hair was disrupted by the blast, and the old man kicked off with both feet, then leaped out, then leaped, and drew his sword to Zhuo Li's head. Zhuo Li was blocked by a knife, and the warhorse under his seat was pushed back a few steps by Yin Chang's strength. Zhuili said keenly, "You know me?" Yin Chang shook his palms when he landed. He slipped away and laughed suddenly. "I know you, you don't recognize me. 7 years ago in Xizhou, I watched you burn houses and slaughter all over the city." He looked suddenly cold. "You took their heads away." Zhuili half-hit and guessed. After waiting for Yin Chang to finish speaking, he untied the twine on the side of the leg, where the head of the chashi whistle hung. He picked it up and threw it to Yin Chang, saying in Bianxia, "I don't want it anymore, I want your head." His head rolled at Yin Chang's feet, all with young faces. Yin Chang looked at these faces, and then looked at Zhuili. He stared quietly at Zhuili. Zhuili felt that the beast in the old body was roaring. "You should give dignity to those who died," Yin Chang said. "You beasts." Fei Sheng followed the garrison to disperse the people. He hesitated on the street for a moment, then turned around and ran back to the east gate. He heard the sound of horseshoes in the middle. Fei Sheng turned back and saw Shen Zichuan was riding to the east gate with a genie. "Get on." Qiao Tianya threw the whip hanging on the side to Fei Sheng. Fei Sheng caught the whip, slowed down, and turned over when the empty horse ran past him. He grabbed the reins and asked Qiao Tianya, "How is Simon?" "Broken." Fei Sheng's face changed. Qiao Tianya went on to say, "The prince blocked it again." Fei Sheng could not help cursing. "Can you finish the fuck?" Qiao Tianya laughed. 2 people followed Shen Zichuan and continued to gallop eastward, staying in front of the city gate, watching the city gate wide open, and the garrison had not yet withdrawn. Shen Zichuan dismounts, strides the meteor to the city head, walks to the middle of the center, and is slammed to a halt by intensive shelling. He pulled away the floating dust and said, "Is there a female wall?" "Not much," Fei Sheng said, covering his ears. "The cavalry has been replaced with a single-shot cannon." Shen Zichuan's heart sank slightly, and Hassan was going to blast the east defense wall in Duanzhou with continuous shelling. He looked down the wall and saw that the cavalry had been forced not far from the trench. "Open the gate and let the water go," said Shen Zichuan, "and the cavalry is about to charge." Opening the gate, Fei Sheng ran to the south, shouting that he was half caught in the dust. He covered his mouth and nose, and immediately remembered something. He grabbed the garrison on the side and asked, "Why don't you close the gate? The cavalry is about to charge." The garrison responded with a cough. The commander has not yet withdrawn." Fei Sheng was startled. He could not care about the heavy stones flying around, grabbed the wall and looked down. There are too many mixed soldiers and horses underneath, and he found Yin Chang with great effort. Back to the city. Yin Chang's knife caught Zhuili's machete, the 2 sides saw on the flat ground, and the old man slid under his feet. He drank backwards, and saw the cavalry that ran over with his light. "Can't fight long." Yin Chang immediately relaxed, and the knife fell along the gap of the machete. He stretched out his arms and copied the handle, and ran his legs toward the trench. The water storage sluices on both sides of the city wall have not been opened, waiting for the garrison to return to the city before releasing. However, Yin Chang felt hot behind his back when he was running wildly, and he shouted, "Close the door." The cavalrymen running behind didn't come to charge at all. They took out the **** with their tails in their pockets before the gates were closed. The birds were panicking in panic, and their pockets were burning, followed by swarming across the trench and crashing into the gate. The hanging door in the gate of the city gate is wooden. Once it ignites, the defense of the east gate is gone. Yin Chang stopped in front of the ditch and jumped suddenly, but Zhuili behind him flew, hooking Yin Chang's robe, and dragged Yin Chang to the ground in the sound of stabbing. Yin Chang stuck in the ground with a knife, stabilized the body pulled by the horse, and hissed toward the gate, exhausted. "Close the door, let the water go." Fuck. Fei Sheng leaped to the next step, pushing the crowd towards the passage. "Wait a minute, I am the ancestor." The fire sparrow hit the city gate, and the clothing of the garrison had already burned. The crowd rolled over to extinguish the fire and ran towards the inside of the passage. There are spare water bags for fire fighting at the foot of the inner city, but there are too many fire sparrows. If you do not close the door, the hanging door will be closed. Shen Zichuan was in the shelling and his throat was dry. He was stabbed in the dust by the sunrise from the east and said, "Close the door." The city gate moved silently, and Fei Sheng was still crowded in the crowd behind him. Like a duckweed against the current, he couldn't catch the life-saving straw he could support. The light in the passage began to converge, and the garrison that crowded in blocked Fei Sheng's eyes. He couldn't see outside, let alone the opposite side of the trench. "Don't close the door." Fei Sheng pushed the defense out of desperation, using the fastest speed in his life, and said, "Don't close the door." The gate was slammed tightly, and the passageway was completely darkened. The sluice gates on both sides suddenly rose, and the trenches that had not been repaired barely filled the water, drawing a line in front of the gate and the cavalry. Sun Zichuan suddenly raised his voice. "Fire!" Yin Chang couldn't bear it and was dragged backwards by the war horse. He dragged his knife, drew it to the ground, and tore off the wine pouch on the waist in the sound of horseshoes. After biting it, his face filled with water. Yin Chang tossed away the wine pouch, wiped his face, and smiled to the sky. "Go ahead." Fei Sheng knelt down in front of the city gate. He cut his hands between the gaps, gritted his teeth and said, "Open the door." Sun Zichuan's lip line was tight. He looked at Yin Chang, his eyes flushed. Fei Sheng caught blood in his hands in the gap covered by the iron sheet. He smashed the door, hit it, and said, "Open the door, open it for me." Zhuo Li covered Yin Chang's neck with a whip, and pulled the old man with his arm. Yin Chang was still holding the knife. He was stuck on the ground and looked at Zhuo Li. He said, give it a pleasure." Zhuo Li's scimitar rested on Yin Chang's neck. When he hooked forward, Yin Chang flew forward. The old man gave up his arm with Zhuo Li's arms and gave up cutting the whip between his neck. The steel knife he copied was sharp, almost twisting his body. Leaning on the forearm with the blade in the raw, Zhuo Li scratched Zhuo Li's head before hooking off his head. Yin Chang fell to the ground with a tightly tied whip in front of his neck. He breathed heavily from his nose, supported the ground with his elbow, and climbed a little in the direction of Duanzhou. The tide-like iron hoof was behind him. Anonymous. Yin Chang laughed and cried again. "Xiaosheng." Yin Chang gasped and shouted to the city gate, his voice uttering through the sky, "Fu Jun, I think this day is a great victory." The old man was buried in a horseshoe. Fei Sheng was across the city gate, and after a brief silence, he grabbed the iron sheet and slid down the tiny light, propping up the gate. The author has something to say. I made the gable car gable, and it may indeed have the role of a defensive device, but I did not see the exact name when I made the data. The chaffing firebirds were blocked outside the door. The garrison did not stop. They ran in the passage, dragging a spare water bag, and splashed water on the gate in case. The chaffing firebirds were blocked outside the door. The garrison did not stop. They ran in the passage, dragging a spare water bag, and splashed water on the gate in case. The edge sand cavalry across the trench was smashed against Zhuo Li's body. Zhuo Li was a four-legged snake that followed Amua to go to Zhongbua 7 years ago, or was a gift from Amua to Hassan. In a few days, the ties with Duanzhou were cut off. "Take him away." The cavalry looked at the gate of Duanzhou city. "This reckless and stupid waste, get up. We must find a way to cross this ditch before Hassan arrives." Yin Chang withdrew the passboard and killed the infantry of the pusher, allowing the Biancha cavalry to face the trenches for a brief period of anxiety, leaving the guards in the city a chance to breathe. However, the ditch in Duanzhou is not yet a moat. The square bricks at both ends are not embedded in order to connect with the ditch on the north and south sides. This ditch cannot be filled for a long time. The water storage sluices were all open, the water had been emptied, and even if the trenches could persist, the edge sand cavalry would find a way to the trenches shortly after. Before dark, the east gate will surely usher in the onslaught of the edge cavalry. Preparing for the heavy stone, Sun Zichuan bowed his head and said to Qiao Tianya, "Push the crossbow to the wall." The garrison troops below the city pushed the bed crossbow together, and moved upwards along the wide passage. The cavalry's single-tip artillery continued to attack, and heavy stones flew against the city wall. The eastern city wall had been thrown out of the gap. The broken masonry was mixed with mud blocks and the wall stack collapsed a few. The garrison had to hold his head to dodge, using his body against the falling crossbow. The garrison was unable to carry the gravity, and a group of people were pressed by the bed crossbow with their heels on the ground, and they also descended, only shouting, it's too heavy. Xiao Tianya jumped over the steps to get a handle, but watched a commoner sank slightly and raised his arms to support the bed where the crossbow slid. Ji Gang's white hair was stained with grey, and Shen Sheng yelled, from. The garrison only felt that his back was light, and Ji Gang's forehead and blue tendon jumped slightly. He took a step and let the bed crossbow slowly move up the slope. When the bed crossbow was in place, Ji Gang's arms were shaking and his back was soaked with sweat. At this moment, when the sun was shining, the sweat was mixed with the dust and covered the face, and there were running soldiers everywhere. The bows and arrows on the wall stacks are not daring to shoot. The enemy forces will likely induce consumption. They will stay until the cavalry charge. The bed crossbow is the same. This killer can't be moved easily. It must be fatal in one hit. Just like Yin Chang killed Zhuo Li, it must hurt the cavalry. The garrison is divided, the 3 teams are guarded by the 3 gates, and the genie rides on the east gate to stand by, said Shen Zichuan, raising his hand holding the knife and wiping the sweat from his cheek with his back. The other 3 gates must be blocked before dark. The Duanzhou granary is full. To fight Duanzhou, the cavalry can consume the Duanzhou granary for a long time, leaving Duanzhou trapped for months and consuming it. However, Hassan wanted to fight fast, so he would not take a long-time siege. The cavalry has been onslaught from last night to now. If the east gate stalemates, the cavalry is likely to go around the other 3 gates and make side attacks like they attacked Shimen. Shun Zechuan lowered the hanging door for defense in the other 3 doors, but this was not a long-term solution, because the cavalry had siege equipment, and a collision with heavy wood could directly break the city gate, and then broke the hanging door, allowing the cavalry to enter smoothly. City. Fire oil, stones, Shun Zichuan said, then demolish the watchtower in the city, and let the garrison soldiers who guarded the 3 gates bring the things that can be used to defend against the wall. Whenever they see the cavalry, they blow their horns. Prompt, throwing away debris to stop them from charging. You have to find a way out of town as soon as possible. Shun Zichuan looked to the horizon to the southeast, where Wolf Yangtai was silent. The gentlemen were gathered on the horse farm. The location was empty enough to accommodate several people in the city. Jiao Zhongxiong was relieved at this moment, leaned over and rubbed his calf, and said to Kong Ling, "The situation is just right situation." As soon as he was anxious, he stuttered again. Kong Ling appeased. No matter, Shunwei had to take Yuanzhua back then, it was already courageous. I was in Dunju in the early years and learned that the cavalry entered the city. It was really nothing to care about. Yarrow Wenyu clasped his sleeves and was interrupted by only one hand in silence. He looked over and saw the proper woman asking the child to pay back the child. Yarrow Wenyu raised his hand, but did not pick up the parcel. His dusty fingers slightly stretched out and touched the child's cheek gently. Live. Yarrow Wenyu's chest fluctuated slightly. The footsteps on the racecourse were dense, and the garrison rushed across the wall to get on the wall. Bows and arrows supply Simon. The teenager, headed back, inserted the knife, carrying the debris with his bare hands. Leave us for the collapsed watchtower. Not enough, the soldier at the wall replied, it just collapsed, not enough. Duanzhou has a lot of defensive equipment. The armament has been evacuated, mainly to support the east gate. The remaining 3 gates can only pick up the remaining points. Bows and arrows were consumed by a wave of infantry soldiers in the morning, and they had to replenish the west gate blocked by the gable. What can I do? Suddenly a man stood on the racecourse. He looked at the old and asked, "Can this be thrown?" The teenager said, "If you throw it, you won't pay it back. Then you take it away." The man tried his best to speak Mandarin. He said, "The city is surrounded, and the cavalry is not killed. It is useless to keep the hoe. Are you short of people?" The garrison did not answer, and they just clashed with the people at Simon. Several individuals stood on the racetrack, all of them are young people, with their own farming tools, and rushed to the defensive army and shouted, "If there is no shortage. If there is no shortage, we are all human." The cavalry's bombardment progressed till the skies reached dusk. The eastern city wall was replenished, and the spare female wall was smashed. The cavalry had not stopped. This was a real bombardment. Single-shot cannons are all stones, Qiao Tianya crouched behind the wall pile, facing the sound of guns, and said to Shen Zichuan, "They are in the wild, they don't lack stones, and they fight like this for 2 more days. Unbearable. Hassan can't wait for 2 days." Shen Zichuan's cheeks were dirty. The cavalry must be charging before night. The garrison has lost Yin Chang. The cavalry wants to explore the current depth of the garrison. The garrison has been exhausted after a day of shelling. This is a good opportunity for the cavalry at this moment. They crossed the trench, and we opened the gate, said Shen Zichuan. The garrison continued to guard the city and let Genie ride against the charge. I and Fei Sheng. You and me, Shen Zichuan raised his eyes, you alternate with me. As long as you repel the charge of the cavalry, you will immediately return to the city. Don't fall in love. The number of cavalry is far more than that of Genie. Steel needles cannot face the axe. As long as Shen Zichuan breaks their impetus, he can maintain his stance. Qiao Tianya licked his lips and said, "You are the monarch, not the general." Shen Zichuan didn't answer. He stood up against the wall, crossed the black cavalry under the dim sky, and looked at Chashi. Chashi is like a jade belt immersed in the sunset, reflecting the magnificent thick clouds and the hunting saws in it. Shen Zichuan's eyes gradually gathered his edge. He said, "I am the governor of Zhongbua." The rose-colored clouds above the Chashi River had not yet spread, and the wall at Shen Zichuan's hand was shocked. The trebuchet. The garrison at the watchtower sounded aloud. The cavalry's trebuchet is here. The trebuchet, which kicked off last night, rested for a whole day after the single-shot cannon, and played again. The cavalry began to split the team. They drummed drums and quickly passed information on the battlefield. Shen Zichuan immediately ripped off the tedious robe, tightened the single-arm restraint, and walked down the steps to the bottom of the city. Fengta Shuangyi waited in awe, and he turned over and said to Qiao Tianya, "Be alert to the other 3 doors." Qiao Tianya saluted, saying aloud, "Prince, big victory." Shen Zichuan turned his head and faced the passage. His beautiful face was covered with blood and sweat, and only those eyes remained bright. The Genie riders behind were breathing smoothly, and they had to make quick decisions. The war horse on the side suddenly sinked. Fei Sheng got on the horse, dragged the embroidered spring sword in front of his waist, and his red eyes looked at Shen Zichuan. "I am the guard of the prince." He paused for a moment, raised his sword. "We are the prince's shield." Shen Zichuan nodded slightly, and Fengta Shuangyi began to move forward. His figure gradually entered the passage, and in the silence facing the city gate, Shen Zichuan said, "I will live and die with you." The gate opened again, and the dull noise ushered in the last daylight, shuttled between countless horseshoes. The rainbow eagle flag was suddenly raised in the afterglow. The cavalry erected a flagpole and swooped down after the infantry after the rectification, and shouted in a front dash. Fei Sheng's scattered hair was blown by the wind, his shaved fingers clenched the handle, and when Shen Zichuan drove his horse forward, he shouted, "Great victory." The wind stepped on the frost and stepped on the dust. The infantry gave up the shield, knelt neatly with the passboard, and set up a narrow bridge when the cavalry was about to pass over itself. The scimitars stepped over the ditch and collided with Jin Ichi under the city. The Biancha cavalry, who had rested all day outside the city, was full of energy. They drank enough milk tea and were full of jerky. They thought that they were facing the exhausted garrison. Who knew that Jiniki also rested properly and leaned on dry food after being full. There is no time to take advantage of it. The 2 sides were like the blades hitting the blades, brutally colliding in the chaotic horseshoe. Yang Shanxue never slammed into the machete, and Shen Zichuan straightened his throat straight. The arm restraint became heavy, and the dripping blood slid down the arm, staining Shen Zichuan's half-body red. The number of cavalry charge was not enough for the first time, and the hurried bridge was too narrow. They could not stand the killing of Genie riding, and could only back off temporarily. Shen Zichuan immediately dropped off his horse and returned to the city. When he entered the passage, the gate was closed again. A torch was lit in the passage, and it was almost half an hour. Shen Zichuan's right arm was dull. He didn't have such a long time in Jinyui's strength. After he got to Zhongbua, he was aware of his body's insensitivity at the moment because of poor physical practice. 2 fingers are unconscious. Shen Zichuan raised his left hand, wiped the blood on his face with no expression, and changed position with Qiao Tianya. Jin Yiwei rested for less than an hour, and the drum outside rang again, and the cavalry charged twice. This time, Qiao Tianya led his troops to fight back, and did not return until he was ugly. We'll battle. Fei Sheng watched the cavalry's moving torches on the wall stack. The cavalry they charge each round is different, so they won't stop until dawn. Hassan hid a part of his troops. Shen Zichuan rested against the wall and stuffed a few hoes. Otherwise Ci and wouldn't be left without news. Xiao Qie went south and did a deduction with Lu Guangbai. The purpose of his south trip was to lure Hassan into the army, but this precursor was that the edge sand cavalry at the gate of the battlefield would be reduced. Lu Guangbai's delay in coming to support shows that the onslaught in the warring place has not stopped. Hassan has long disguised himself for the attack on Duanzhou. It is likely that there are more than 6 behind Amor. Fei Sheng looked at the cavalry and said, I have to bring the old man back. Shen Zichuan barely finished eating the buns and stood up with Yang Shanxue. He had not slept all day and all night. This is to find a way. Shen Zichuan looked up slightly. The next round of charge, Qiao Tianya does not have to retreat, we will leave the city together. Fei Sheng turned his head. Shen Zichuan's eyes were gloomy, and he said clearly, fuck. Fei Sheng's stiff facial muscles gradually moved, and he didn't know why. He suddenly laughed, smiled, raised his hands to wipe his tears, and said, fuck.